the Triforce and it feels right. Like Bowser, you can listen all night, singing peaches until the sun lights. Summer shoots her beam so bright. Master Hand always brings a fight. Catch 'em all and use that fire blast. Put the soul back to visit your past. Welcome to the Nintenbyte Podcast.
Again.
We got to make sure we turn off the other computer before we start. We have the podcast playing back to us. Hey, what's going on, everyone? Anyways, just close everything. Just close all of Chrome. Tell Chrome to screw off. All right, welcome everyone to the Nintenbyte Podcast, episode 3. There's only one Chrome. Yeah, you click. Yeah, just right click, close all. Anyways, welcome everyone to episode 3 of the Nintenbyte Podcast. Someday we'll stop having that happen because I set it up on one computer, then we stream it from a different computer, and it's just a whole mess. It's been a big week. It's actually, you know what's crazy? I was just talking to Eric about this before the show. We rebooted the show and launched this new podcast 3 weeks ago, and that's immediately when things started getting really interesting in the news.
It's like we planned it that way.
And we've had like big topics every single week. I don't get it. Thank you, Nintendo, by the way. Apparently you just decided, hey, we were planning to reboot the show and have this new thing on May 1st, the very first day. We planned this like 2 months earlier. And all of a sudden, that's when Nintendo decided, hey, we're going to open the floodgates. Here you go. Have some news. So today is a pretty jam-packed show. We got multiple Zelda topics. We got multiple Switch 2 stuff going on. This is wild. Now, before we do and figure out what the topics are and do our little topic roulette pick 'em with the 4 hosts, let's go around and just tell people who we are, what we got going on. Cheesy, who the hell are you?
Hey, I'm Cheesy. I am a Nintendo content creator like everyone here, I'm guessing. I'm on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram. Also have a podcast called Communication Error Podcast that I host with John Ebo. It's a gaming debate podcast. And that's been going pretty strong. So thanks for having me, and it's nice to meet everyone here.
Awesome, man. Back, well, actually, the first time ever on this podcast, Nick with no K. Who the hell are you?
That's me. I'm a content creator because I do a lot of different things. I have a YouTube channel where I talk about like anime, video games, all my nerdy stuff. But then I also have a podcast called The Nerdiest Podcast where we talk about movies, TV shows, occasionally video games. So I do all that. I'm on Twitter at Nerdiest Nick. That's where I do most of my stuff. And I am excited to talk about Zelda tonight because I love me some Zelda.
Don't you have some sort of Lego channel too?
I did at one point. I had 15,000 subs, and then I kind of just stopped.
Damn it,
I
Lego.
didn't want to do it anymore.
That's all right. It's a very expensive hobby too.
Yeah.
Maybe you should just use it to play the Lego video games.
I thought I tried that, and it didn't work out very well.
Oh,
Darn.
Sorry.
Darn.
Sad day.
Then we have Sabrina, the teenage witch. No.
Hey everyone, I'm Sabrina. I have a YouTube channel called Saffron City TV. I essentially talk about Pokemon regions and kind of everything that goes into making a good one. And I go through and fix the issues with them and talk about all kinds of stuff, but mostly just focus on Pokemon regions. I do have an Instagram, but I'm pretty low on the radar as far as social media is concerned. So your best bet if you want to engage with me is either on YouTube or on Instagram. And outside of that, come check me out. I do really long form content. So most of the stuff I put out is like no less than an hour long. But it's fun. It's good stuff. So y'all feel free to come check it out.
Hell yeah. Co-host of the show, Thunder, Steve 85 Gaming. What do you got going on, buddy? Who are you?
What's up? So you guys can find me, like Nate said, over at Thunder Steve 85 Gaming here on YouTube. And I will echo the same thing. I'm on social media, but I'm not really on there too much. So if you want to interact, you can find me here on YouTube. And currently I'm just working on a retro game series that I hope to have the first video out for this weekend. So that should be fun.
Nice.
Awesome. Andres Restart. I don't know you.
Me neither. Still figuring it out.
Still figuring it out.
Yep.
Eric.
Yep. I'm here.
That's all you
That's
get.
pretty much it.
All right.
I'm always here.
Always here.
Well, yeah.
You always got to one up me, Eric.
Sorry.
All right, I'm Nate
That's
from
okay.
Nintendo Prime. You guys know
I'm
what's
leaving.
up at this point. So our four co-hosts here, we're all going to pick some topics from the topic roulette. This week's maybe the least interesting roulette, or maybe the most interesting roulette. And we're gonna start. I was gonna start with Andres, but he literally turned his camera
He
off.
actually did leave.
So I guess we'll start with Thunder Steve 85 Gaming.
Ooh, topic. Let's go with. I think I gotta go with the Zelda game rumors and leaks since I'm wearing the shirt. Now that I think about it,
Zelda game rumors and leaks.
yeah.
All right. I'm gonna go next. And you know what? I've been taking the damn Switch 2 topics every single week because I've been forced into it at the end. So I'm actually gonna go. Which game is better, Breath of the Wild versus Tears of the Kingdom?
Oh boy.
Is it? So I'm leaving some tough decisions here for the other two. Eric, you've been first last 2 weeks, so Andres restart.
Damn. So let me just make sure I understand correctly. We got the Zelda topic picked. We got the Zelda other topic picked.
Yep.
And I have three other topic choices here.
These are two most difficult topics.
So
three most difficult topics.
Yes.
So the thing is, I think it'd be very odd if we didn't talk about Switch 2. So I'm gonna hope that Eric picks that one. And I'm going to discuss not this third party thing. Honestly, don't care. Square Enix, yeah, their game should come to Switch 2, obviously.
Oh no.
I'm going with is Eric hot? In parentheticals, do not choose this. Tis a joke. He's hot to trot. Parentheticals ended. You said do not choose, which obviously means Andres picked this one. So
Lord.
That's it. Is Eric hot? That's going to be a topic of conversation.
Oh Lord. Oh Lord. Why? I was joking.
It's there. Dude, I put it there.
You
No,
put it
you're
in
gonna put
there.
it
You
there.
knew exactly what
No,
you
no.
were getting
So
yourself
cool.
into.
What happened is
It is gone now.
I'll tell the story behind it though, real quick. That was not the topic I suggested. We have had 5 topics the last how many weeks? The last 2 weeks. We've only had 2 shows. So Nate did 4. And I'm like, well, we always do 5 and then we always tell them what one didn't get picked. So I'm like, just throw a random topic in there. And this is what Nate puts in here.
Yeah, it wasn't meant to actually be picked.
No.
But alrighty then.
No.
Picked it. should
You
be
did
careful
pick
what you
it.
put in there.
And what sucks is you left the most difficult topic to talk about to the person who knows nothing about it.
It's all right. All he has to say is, "Hey, look, there is leaks." All right, so what were they? And that's
Yes,
it. It's
I know.
just
Well,
good.
actually, I wrote
I
good.
can
I
read.
wrote good notes
I
for the
can
leaks. I did write
questionably
good
read.
notes.
I can questionably read.
You can read.
So I guess I'll go with the
All
Switch
right.
2 spec lead then.
Always trying to one up me. You can
No.
read.
Hold on. Let's go with the
Why-
third party
I-
Switch
wait,
2
I got a
support.
question. I got a question.
Yeah.
How come the Switch 2 stuff always ends up being the final topic every week?
I don't know.
Good
Tradition. Tradition.
Every week
I-
at this point.
I read this, like 10 seconds before I left,
You
and I
called
was
it.
like, "All right, I know what I want to pick." And so I made a choice, and this is just how you decided to do it. Just how the pieces came.
Well,
down.
I might peace out during your topic, but
Yep.
that's okay.
I will too.
All right,
God damn.
All right.
Oh, Lord.
That being
I'll spin it.
Oh,
I'll spin
sure.
it.
Yeah. All right. So, what was it? Thunder Steve first, buddy? Want to introduce your topic?
Absolutely. All right, guys. So there were a couple of new rumors out there for Zelda. And the first one was interesting. It was by Gino's Papa on Twitter. And it was discussing a Legend of Zelda game starring Zelda. And the idea behind this. And now he's a notable leaker. Is that right?
He's known to leak, but isn't always right.
Right. Now, obviously, we just got Princess Peach Showtime, And it kind of would, in my opinion, make sense to also see Princess Zelda get her own game. So it's interesting in that aspect. And it was funny just reading through those Twitter comments. Someone did mention that Zelda did technically have a game with the CDI game, if we want to technically count that. Obviously, that's something we probably
Zelda's
want to
Adventure,
look
baby.
over.
Yeah.
But I could totally see this happening. And it's kind of funny just because you guys probably know growing up playing the Legend of Zelda games, if you didn't know the series well, like if you didn't play the games, but you knew of the Legend of Zelda, everyone thought you controlled Zelda in the game that didn't play the game.
Right.
So it would be funny to actually get something like
The Legend of Link.
Legend of Link, yeah.
Yes.
So it actually would make sense, and I think the opportunity is ripe to try this out because once again, if this were to come out on Switch 1, then you have that huge install base to test this out on. So now would be a good time to do that if this actually happens, right? So we don't know. It's a rumor at this point.
Yeah. Were you gonna point out the cryptic nature of the tweet? Because if you just read the tweet, it just looks like he's just talking about his wishes.
Yeah. Can you actually? Do you want to point it out?
Sure. So, I mean, I think Nate's in control of the mouse, right?
Yep, I got it.
Yeah. All right. So basically, if you just look at every capital letter in the tweet, you'll notice that if you guys don't know how to write English,
Right.
you don't capitalize "had" in the middle of a sentence, nor do you capitalize severely or most of the words there. Usually the I's are not capitalized unless they're by themselves. Anyways, point is, if you put all those letters together, it says this is a hint. So it's a hint. He's talking about playable Princess Zelda, that now's the time. So that's why everyone's kind of assuming that it's for this year. I do, however, want to bring. I mean, I don't know how you want to tie in the other Zelda rumor, right? But this one is more.
Well, let's focus on this one for a little bit.
Yeah,
and then
the only reason I bring it up is because possibly they're related, although maybe not.
I sincerely doubt.
Yeah, I am inclined to agree, but we don't know for 100%.
Well, here's what I'll say. I'll add a little to this because I found a little more context for this today. Papagenos was on a podcast where he was obviously asked about this, and he indicated that it will be part of a prediction video for the June Direct, which tells me it's nothing to do with Switch 2.
Great. Even
But,
better.
I don't know. He won't give any more details on what he knows.
So, all right. So then let's operate under this assumption, right?
Yeah.
Even if maybe he doesn't get everything right. You know, I don't think he's someone who lies, right? I think he just hears some things from people and then he'll mention it if he thinks it's believable.
Sure.
And so, like, what would this mean? Would it mean like a spinoff, like you were saying, Steve? And if that's the case, like, I think there's some people I've seen people kind of not be. It's like this wasn't actually like that big of a story as much as people wanted it to be, I guess, because people were like, oh, I think a lot of people made the comparison to Princess Peach Showtime, and personally, I think that's a terrible comparison, right? Like in the sense that it's a good comparison in the sense that obviously like Princess Peach is having her own starring role. But in terms of like hype and intrigue for like the core Nintendo fan base, I think it's a huge mismatch, right? Like I think a spin-off Zelda game, like a Princess Zelda game, has so much potential in so many different categories. She could be like a really powerful mage. She could also be like a really powerful ninja. She has both these different trajectories in terms of like, you know, combat mechanics. I remember there's this canceled project at Retro Studios. It was supposed to be based off a game of Ashika. And so imagine that Retro Studios game that they've been working on for years. What it's a Zelda spinoff, and we see that before Metroid Prime 4.
Okay,
That'd be very interesting.
I had a thought on this, and this goes back to, and this presumes that this is correct. I don't know. He's already indicated he's going to predict it for the June Direct, but he doesn't, know if it's going to be there. Indicating it's a Switch game. What I thought was interesting about this, if it was like a Switch game in the second half of this year, so I go back to words that Aonuma said about how they're not going back to old Zeldas, right? Which pretty indication like they're not going back to the linear Zeldas. Heck, the main Zelda team might not ever make a top-down Zelda again either. I know we speculated on Grezzo maybe doing something. What if what they meant was we're not making a traditional Zelda that way, but we're going to do a top-down Zelda with Zelda actually now being the lead character in top downs moving forward and taking those in kind of a new, unique direction that's not about having the master sword and all that stuff. As you said, like unique gameplay mechanics that would be specific to her. Because it would, one, allow them to release more Zelda games more often while not eating up the main Zelda team's time that now takes longer than ever to make a big Zelda game. And then it could also allow kind of her to have her own starring role in a form that you're familiar with, but will feel new because the gameplay mechanics will be different. And I think that might be a really interesting way to go about introducing her as a playable character. And I'm not saying she'll never be playable in a 3D Zelda adventure. That's something that to be determined, but it's one of those that feels right to me. Something that they could churn out every 3-4 years in between the big Zelda games. And I think people would actually be pretty hype about it as long as the gameplay kicks ass. So that's something I was kind of thinking of because I'm like, hey, that might be a nice little game also to sort of round out the end of Switch. And if it's top down, you don't need Switch 2 to really make that a better experience. So it wouldn't feel like it's out of place releasing this year. Could be actually kind of a really neat little game depending on how they go about it, assuming that any of this is true. So I don't know. That's what I was sort of thinking. Let me throw it over to Sabrina. What are your thoughts here?
I mean, I really hope that it is true because I would absolutely love to see a Zelda game, like actually with Zelda as the playable character. That would be something that I would pre-order that, and I don't pre-order jack. So, I absolutely think that game would be really cool, but I think that Zelda deserves her day. You know, like her name is literally in the title of every single solitary one of them. And for eons now, we have not been able to play as her unless it's in like some kind of like third party. I mean, I know that she was a playable character like way back then, but I didn't even know about those games until I started learning about this stuff. So that being said, I think that she does deserve her time in the spotlight. One of the cool things that I noticed about that picture is that the picture that the guy, I don't have his name off the top of my head. What is this? Papa
Yeah,
Genius,
so that image is from the Masterworks of Tears of the Kingdom coming out later this year.
Yeah, and he said there's no relation. He just thought it was a cool image.
That is a cool image but I'm thinking like, I wonder if when you play as her, you can customize her hairstyle and stuff. That would be really freaking cool.
Yeah, that's what people brought up on that podcast. And he's like, just so you guys know, I just thought it was a cool image. It's not related.
Well, he was right. It is a cool image. It got me super hype. I was like, what?
Yeah.
So, I would be so ready to play that game. But I think I would prefer to, if I'm being totally honest, I think it would be really, really cool to see the game where Zelda is the playable character in the Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom series. I would like to see the third installment be where she gets her time, because she's already been a pretty gigantic character in both Breath of the Wild and even a bigger player in Tears of the Kingdom. So I think she should get the third game. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but I think it would be really cool.
All right. Cheesy, keeping it breezy.
I am a Princess Peach Showtime defender. I really enjoyed that game, but I also did theater growing up. So there were a lot of elements to it that I like really enjoyed. But I also think it's really cool that Peach got her own game. And part of me thinks that they made that game because of the Mario movie, not because of the success of the Mario movie, but the development of the Mario movie. And when they were making it, they also noticed or saw like how great of a character that she was and that people might want to play a game as her. And since we have the Zelda movie coming out, even though it's live action, I think you can still have that same compassion for a character and wanting to play as them. And I think there were rumors that we were going to play as Zelda in Tears of the Kingdom, or that's what people were wanting. So at this point, it's just like, I think it just needs to happen. What does that game look like? I'm not really sure. Is it the same? Like, are you just doing the same thing as Link? Because I think that's the problem that they had with Showtime too, is like, you don't want Peach to do the same thing as Mario. Otherwise, it's just a Mario game. So you have to give her her own identity and her own genre of game.
I think that that's a cool idea. Even if it did, I think even if it was kind of like Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom, I think if she got her own skill set,
Mhm.
that would even suffice for me. Make her unique and give her her own kind of abilities.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, I like the idea of us getting some form of a new 2D Zelda. And by the way, Cheesy, when I said about Princess Peach Showtime, I'm not saying it's a bad game, right? It just doesn't appeal to the most hardcore centric part of the Nintendo audience.
Oh,
But
and I get that, and it didn't
Yeah.
run well. Like it's not it's not that great of a game, but there is a lot of charm in it, and I think if you are able to appreciate it for what it is, it's fun. But yes, I think especially after the Mario movie too, you see how heroic Princess Peach is,
for sure.
and then you don't really get that in the game. Like it does kind of feel like you're playing dress up, which I've heard a lot of people say, but like being honest with you, that's theater. Like you're just putting
Sure.
on different costumes and playing different characters. So I mean, I think they got it right, but also I get what you're saying. It's not going to appeal to most gamers.
Yeah, but it does have its audience for sure, especially like if you watch the movie. Like I'm sure there's a lot of people who fell in love with the character of Peach and just want to see her own adventure. And to that end, you know, I also recognize that a lot of people have been clamoring for like some form of playable Zelda. But if you look at like the various interviews with AJ and Numa and such, like, and you kind of see how they sort of see the Legend of Zelda, Link is the main character for that form of the gameplay, right? But they also really like Princess Zelda. She's had a prominent role. I would say her roles in especially in Tears of the Kingdom, like she plays a pretty significant role. I thought they did her justice as a character, and she did some pretty cool things. But it would be nice to see, you know, a different form of gameplay to better represent her. And so it's its own thing. And to Nate's point, it gives us another variant of Zelda that we can play while we wait for the next big game. I mean, I'm a fan of that for most of Nintendo's franchises. Like with Mario, we have so many different variations of Mario. And we even have that technically for Metroid as well. We sort of have it for Donkey Kong, but 3D Donkey Kong, actually Donkey Kong in general has just been kind of on a big hiatus. But Zelda has 2D Zelda. They have open world Zelda. And actually, I would even maybe make the argument that if assuming this is not 2D, we don't know what it is, right? We're just spitballing. But let's say this would be something based off of like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom from like an art style perspective, and maybe using some of the tech. Maybe they can use kind of that and make a more linear style Zelda game where Princess Zelda is the main character. However, her abilities that could be a pretty cool way to handle it, and that wouldn't have as large of a development time as, you know, Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people have thought like, hey, if this is real, it would be kind of cool if it was a linear style Zelda game starring Zelda, and it's all the stuff that happened in the past in Tears of the Kingdom, and you got to actually play through all that, where it culminates with you deciding that you're gonna, you know, swallow the thing. That would be really cool.
Explain why we didn't get any DLC.
And it would just be really neat to see it like more fully fleshed out and interconnected in that way. That would just be really cool.
Especially if we could play as
and we already know what the middle is. We already know what the plot twist is going to be. So like that's kind of cool. Like watching the build up for that. That'd be sick.
All right, this is me going like full crazy, right? So at the end of the Tears of the Dragon Quest, right? You see what happens to Zelda. I feel like it's been over a year. I shouldn't have to like.
No, you're fine with
around this. All right, so Zelda can become a dragon or becomes a dragon.
She does.
She does become a dragon, right? She can't change back until magic. But imagine a scenario where you basically you play as the dragon, right? Like what if they end like as an epilogue story or what have you, like something that connects the end of that story in the past to Tears of the Kingdom or the times of that version of Hyrule. You get to actually play it as her as a dragon, and there's some weird, like very like celestial things going on. I don't know. I think it'd be interesting. Maybe they could sort of answer to why all Zonai are missing. Like there's a lot of lore potential.
Sure,
there's a lot. That'd be fun, especially because you could fly around as a dragon.
Eric, got any thoughts? Playable Zelda?
Oh yeah, I got some thoughts. No, two things. I'd like to see kind of a game of, you know, Zelda going through her quest in Tears of the Kingdom, kind of flesh that storyline out a little bit more. That would be really fun. The other thing would be really kind of cool would be, you just a random Zelda, game Zelda doing a whole bunch of stuff, and then at the end you find out she's the goddess Hylia and is giving the stones to the Zonai to then kick off the events of Tears of the Kingdom and everything like that.
You're getting deep into some
I
lore
am.
over there, and I'm loving it. This is like getting into lore of games you haven't played. This is sweet. Dude, dude, Eric actually getting deep into the lore of the goddess Hylia Zelda
All right,
thing
good
from
night,
Skyward
everybody.
Sword is pretty awesome. I love it. I love it. Nick with no K, what are you thinking?
I have a couple different thoughts. The first thing I want to mention is everyone kind of assumes that we're going to go to like Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom, Zelda. And I think that's really limiting if you assume that's the direction they're going to go. I know it's like the assumption because those are the two biggest games, but I think you end up limiting the potential of this game by saying, well, it's going to be that Zelda because there are so many different versions of Zelda you could pull from, but also you could have a completely different original Zelda specifically for that game. And if I had to like have an ideal one, I'd say like combine the Hyrule Warriors one who has that really sick like rapier, and then the one from Link Between Worlds who does all the magic stuff. And like if you could combine those two together, and I don't necessarily know what kind of game you could do. I think it would be really interesting if you did it in a timeline where Link died and she was the only one left, so she kind of had to fight against Ganondorf and this army coming up against Hyrule, and there is no hero, and that's why she is now thrust into the limelight. Or you could be like, Link's asleep. He's taking a nap, and
Sleeping Beauty.
some random villain decided it's my turn to do stuff, and Link's still asleep, so Zelda's got to pick up the slack. But I think it's definitely a game that's worth happening because to the point of like, it's called The Legend of Zelda, and we don't have a Zelda dedicated game yet. I think it could be really fun, but I also don't think it's going to detract or change any of the big mainline games. Those will still be like Link's the hero, Zelda's the princess, we have whatever evil version of Ganondorf. Like that's gonna stay pretty much the same, but they can feel free to experiment with like these spin-off games or like something that's not a mainline and do like, oh, let's do just a Zelda game because Zelda should have her own game. And I think it would be really fun and I would play it.
I
Sure.
see a lot of people talking about Chic in the
Mhm.
comments and how they could incorporate Chic into that one.
Mhm.
And I love Chic, so I'd be down for that. But you know what, Nick, you make a really good point that I guess I hadn't really considered is that and if we do end up talking about whether or not Tears of the Kingdom is better than Breath of the Wild, maybe I should save this point for then. But I guess I hadn't considered that, yeah, if they did decide to make Legend of Zelda game in that world as of now, it could be kind of limiting because, I mean, for those who have played both games, you've already essentially played through the whole world twice and, plus some. So I think it would have to be like I don't know. Yeah, I guess you're right. It could be a little bit limiting.
And if you want to get really technical, if you've played Age of Calamity, that's a third time you've
Yeah.
experienced that group of characters, that world. So this would be the
Right.
fourth time going back. I just think the creative juices could be expunged somewhere else and
Yeah.
doing something new and different. Because that's why
And
people like Breath of the Wild.
yeah, and if you gave her like her own kind of spin-off series, then you could do whatever you wanted with it. Really. I mean, she could have multiple titles within that spin-off series. So
I mean, if
that's
this
a good
first
point.
one's really good, if something is real, why not more? If it sells 5 million copies this holiday, why wouldn't they make another one down the road? So I feel like there's a lot of potential there. And I guess the question is, what kind of gameplay direction do they go? Because there's a lot of things they could do. You brought up, kind of like Princess Zelda, like almost like warrior Princess Zelda, Nick, like when she was holding like the rapier, but she actually also has it in Twilight Princess. And so there's a scene in Twilight Princess where Xant
drops it. Yeah.
Attacks, and she's forced to either fight or surrender and have her people survive. And so she chooses to surrender. But it's an interesting moment. Like, so it would be interesting to see maybe like, because the thing is, there's no king there. She's the leader in that throne room. And so it kind of gets you thinking, like, what were the circumstances then? So if we had a Zelda game, a spin-off Zelda game where she's a star, like maybe even ties, like from a story perspective, maybe there's even like some political stuff that are tying into it, right? Like just like from the perspective of a princess running a kingdom, but also leading an army. And so that's an interesting gameplay direction. But we also mentioned Sheik. Like there's so many different ways they could go about doing this. It would be crazy. I'll just add something in terms of like the idea if like they did kind of stick with like the Breath of the Wild Tears of the Kingdom aesthetic. If it's linear, I think it'd be easier to produce an environment that could be completely unique from what we've seen in those games while still using that same art style, which would still be kind of cool. Like, what if it took place? I mean, well, for example, the quest takes, Zelda's quest takes place in the past. That's in a Hyrule we don't know. And we only got to see like little bits and pieces of it. But what if we got to see a little bit more of it as it was then? And it's completely different from how it is in Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom.
That
could
work.
That could be fun.
Yeah, that could be fun. Like having Hyrule like built up like it was in the past, like with, gigantic castles and structures all over the place and
an actual castle town.
Yeah, an actual castle town, and
be
maybe
nice.
different enemies as well.
Yeah, or even different, like just like NPCs, right? Because if we go back to Skyward Sword, there were different species around then that aren't around in Breath and Tears. So that it would be kind of neat to maybe see some of those.
Yeah,
Sure.
yeah,
Sure.
that could
What
be
if the
really
Koroks are Kokiri in the past, for example?
So there was another Zelda rumor. Thunder Steve, you want to get to that one?
Yeah, absolutely. So this was a pretty exciting one. The rumor was about Breath of the Wild, there being a remake for the Switch 2, presumably. That's, it's been talked about before. I think if I recall, was it Gamescom last year where it was rumored that it was shown behind closed doors,
Yes.
running at 4K, 60 frames per second.
With
So
no
this would
load
be
times,
like a
virtually.
Breath of the Wild complete edition with all the DLC running at 4K, 60 frames per second, which would be pretty awesome. And so for me personally, I played Breath of the Wild when it came out. I got it on launch day. I beat it fairly quickly, and I haven't returned to it since. So if this was a possible launch title or launch window title, I think it would be awesome, and I don't think it would take away from the other Switch launch lineup. But what do you guys think?
I just don't know if we're ready for that yet.
I'm
I
also
think
gonna.
it's too soon for a remake of Breath of the Wild. I don't know.
Just to be clear,
I don't know that it's a remake,
remaster.
though. Yeah,
Oh,
remaster.
It's probably a
basically taking
remaster.
advantage of the Switch 2 hardware.
You know what I find interesting? Because I'm so glad there's people that think it's too soon and everything, because it's been a very, very, very common thought I've seen. By the time this comes out, it will be almost a decade. So how long do we need to wait?
Longer.
I can't believe
mean,
it's been
A
almost
Eight
remaster.
years,
We're not even
bucko.
talking about a remake. To keep in mind, when did the Wind Waker HD come out?
2013.
10 years.
10 years.
So this isn't even that crazy.
The Japanese version of Wind Waker came out December 2002, so it's more like 9 years and many months.
Even that, though, like, look at The Last of Us.
Yeah, I mean,
And that
I get
thing
it.
sells.
When did Twilight Princess HD come out?
That came out early 2016.
So
and
again, another 10 years.
that one's closer to it's
And nobody thought that was like bad.
It's also 9 years and many months because it came out early 2016.
Yeah,
The
yeah.
Twilight Princess released holiday 2006. So okay,
But that's
yeah,
kind of
anyway,
I was
yeah.
kind of bringing up the point that like this is like what they did before. So I don't really know why we're suddenly having a problem with it happening now. I think and this is just from the criticism I've seen, people for some reason think this is the launch game. It is not the launch game if it exists at all. It is not like this is not how they're going to sell the platform.
Dead on arrival. If so.
I agree. That's the criticism I read too.
Yeah, I think they will use this if they do show it, say in the reveal trailer and advertise it before launch as a game to come after launch. I think they would use it as an example of things they're going to be doing to some of the most popular Switch games with DLSS and all that to bring it over to Switch 2.
Exactly.
I think that's probably how it'll be used.
Yeah,
it's a showpiece for the console of what it can do with Switch 1 games.
Yeah.
So then eventually would they need to do like a remaster of Tears of the Kingdom too?
Probably.
Yeah, and a lot of people complained about how that ran. So that one would be real good.
So this is my concern. And a lot of this comes down to just how we get information beforehand, because we don't know how Nintendo is going to present this, right? We don't know how Nintendo is going to advertise this. The best example I bring up for this is when Eurogamer reported about the Nintendo NX, which we now know is a Switch, right? When they told us it was going to be a portable system, I was so appalled by the idea because I didn't see Nintendo market it, right? I thought it was going to be, not something they could really run games in the way we wanted it to. And then when they actually showed us that first look trailer, it was like, oh, that's Breath of the Wild, portably and docked. Okay, this is exactly what I wanted, right? So the point I'm simply getting at is until we see how Nintendo intends to sort of position this, it's hard. I probably shouldn't draw conclusions, because if it is kind of treated as like, oh, this is our big Zelda for the first year of Switch 2, I think that would be a mistake. But if it's treated as, hey, there's a variety of games that we're going to release improved versions for that you can get it maybe at a discounted rate if you already own the game, or you pay like $70 if it's something you've never had before.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But it's just like a line of games, or like say it's not just Breath of the Wild, it's also Super Mario Odyssey. It's also, I don't know, Pikmin 4. Just big sort of marquee titles that came out throughout the Switch era. That I'm okay with. But as long as it's sort of advertised as, hey, this is just like a line of games we're doing, it's not our next big thing. Like, say if we were to get this instead of, say, for example, an Ocarina of Time remake in 2026, I think that would be bad. Like, if this is the only thing we get, and then Tears of the Kingdom remastered until, I don't know, 2030, when we get the next actual Zelda game, that would be bad.
Yeah, but I think that I would like to rescind my prior opinion. Time apparently just goes by super fast because I'm like, oh crap, yeah, it is. It's 2024. Game came out on the Switch in 2017, right?
That's
So,
only 7
Day
years,
one.
though. That's not that long
Okay,
ago.
but by the
Well,
time
we're talking
it
about
comes
next
out,
year. It's
not
over
gonna
8
come out.
years.
Yeah, it's not going to come out this year. It's going to be closer, and that's if it comes out next year. If it doesn't accidentally, if it doesn't get delayed, or
There's
if
no
it doesn't
saying
come
that
out.
it will be technically year one.
Yeah, exactly. But I think it would be perfect for an anniversary release.
Yeah.
Something like that. I think would be really cool. But I don't think that they would. Do you
I
think?
will note they also never re-released the game with all the DLC included.
Yeah, they didn't. But they did in
Oh.
Japan. The
In
Japanese.
Japan, but they just didn't do a
but not
worldwide.
here.
But who
Like a
here's going to buy
deluxe
it?
edition is sort of.
Let's say there's no $10 enhancement fee. It's just, hey, this is the game at $70, right? 4K 60. Let's even say they add ray tracing, right? It has virtually no load time.
Sure,
It has all the
DLC, obviously.
right?
included.
Let's say it's all that, right? Who here is going to buy that game for $70?
I
Oh.
would buy it to collect it. I probably wouldn't buy it to play it.
I
It's
would
my,
not
second,
buy
it's my
it.
second favorite game of all time. I'm
I
gonna buy
would
the shit out of
replay
it.
it because I haven't played it. 'Cause like I said
It's
before.
actually gonna make me want to replay it.
Here's
Wait,
a
wait,
question, though.
Thunder Steve, you said you haven't played it?
No, I'm saying, I played it and beat it, but I haven't played
Yeah.
it since it came out.
Oh, gotcha.
Games that I really love, I'll play it, I'll beat it, and then it's shelved for years, sometimes decades.
So I think it's great that people will have the option of playing it if they've never played it before, or those that want to revisit it. I am kind of with Andres though. It worries me that we are getting a deluxe line again, and I'm sick of the deluxe line. The deluxe line was great for those that didn't have a Wii U or played the Wii U games, which was a lot of people. But because we have the Switch, I don't think we need to have a deluxe line of games for the Switch. It will be nice to revisit some of your favorite games and they look better and they run better, but you don't want them to use that as an excuse for everything else that could be for the next successor.
I agree with that. I think this is going to be part of the Switch's selling point, personally. The Switch 2, though, is the way it can improve Switch 1 games.
Yeah,
by
I
using
also
the
I also want to
DLSS.
point out that Nintendo does release a lot of games every single year. I don't think any of the deluxe versions were in lieu of new games. I think they were in addition to
Except
That's
for
what
Mario
I
Kart
was
Deluxe.
going to say. Yeah,
Except
because
for
I've
Mario
never.
Kart 8
That's why I
Deluxe.
don't think it'll go away
Yeah.
because it's going to be in addition to. Now we can make an argument for like Mario Kart 8 Deluxe as an example. They brought that over, so we didn't get new, but did we not get new Mario Kart? We technically got two of them, one on a phone, and we got that make your own course one. I
We
forgot what
got
it's called.
48 new
Live
tracks,
circuit.
too,
And 48 new tracks, technically.
which was
Yeah.
huge.
But
7
yes,
years
that is
later.
a rare exception where that was sort of in lieu of a new one. But that was like the only exception besides Donkey Kong. And for all we know, they've been working on one. At least that's all the rumors say. We have no idea when the hell it's going
Right.
to come out.
So I don't think we
I
would
don't
get
think
that.
Tropical Freeze was in lieu of a new one because Retro Studios wasn't working on a new one. They're working on Metroid Prime 4.
Yeah.
No,
Yeah,
and I
well-
don't think that it's in lieu of a new product. I think they were wise to put out those games because a lot of people didn't experience them. So for a lot of people, they were considered new. I don't think Nintendo considered it new, but it was new for a new audience.
So do you hate that every
I
other
agree with
company does this?
Yes.
Because they all do it. Every gen, they all
Everyone.
No, I mean, I don't know. Like Last of Us just got a remaster when Last of Us Part 2 is how old?
Part 2 came out in 2020,
Yeah, so like, isn't that still
4 years.
pretty new?
And then Part 1
Jesus.
had the PS3 version.
do it. Yeah,
the
part
PS4
one,
version,
part one's been
and the
remastered twice.
PS5.
It's been remastered twice.
Part 1
officially.
has 3 remasters,
Wow.
or 3 games total.
3
which is
games,
wild.
2 remasters that they called remastered. Yeah. That they
I'll
called
s-
it that.
in 10 years.
I'll say this to spin it in a slightly different direction, right? Like if this happens, which I wouldn't be surprised. Something to note though is that supposedly it was a tech demo, and maybe it's just a
Yeah,
tech demo.
the Gamescom one was the tech demo. The one that the one that we never really got into it was Midori said, and for those who don't know, Midori is a very reliable insider with Sega Atlas and has been getting a little bit into Nintendo stuff recently. I'll just reshare it quick here. I still have it on screen. Midori put out this tweet saying there's a project at Nintendo with the codename King O. It's notable because King was actually the project name for Breath of the Wild originally. And it might be related to the rumors of the next Nintendo console codename. There's stuff about that we might get into later. This person pointed out, how that this must be for Switch 2 and must be an enhanced version because of the way they did Switch 1 ports and added like -S to the suffix on the code names. And then he pointed out the -C for 3DS because the 3DS is CTR. What I find fascinating about that is that it being a project doesn't mean it's going to come out. Because again, if they were using this to showcase, according to Nate the Hate, the showcase for it was specifically, it wasn't about the higher resolution, the higher frame rates. It was to showcase the instant loading, so the faster internal storage is what they were trying to showcase, because that was like a big feature being touted by PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series. Hey, load times aren't really going to be a thing. Everything's going to be pretty quick, which isn't technically true. It depends on the game, but they were trying to showcase, hey, we have this big open world game where you can travel to different places instantly, and it's actually instant. There's no load screen. You hit the button and you're there. And that's what they were trying to showcase. So it is possible this is a project that never comes out. It's also possible, well, if that's what they were showcasing, but it was also notably higher resolution and notably higher frame rates, that clearly they were probably doing other work on it to potentially bring it out, or at least have a patch of some type that could be applied. Like the exciting part's the patch thing. I think that's what I don't know, any Switch 1 owner is going to be mad if we get patches for all our Switch games and backwards compatibility to run better. Like, who wouldn't want
Hey,
that?
a patch
I'm good.
is great.
I'm
And
happy.
as long as it's not in lieu of anything else Zelda we could get.
Yeah.
great.
And I don't think this would
I
be
don't
in
think
lieu of
it is.
anything.
No,
Yeah.
I don't think so either.
This reminds me of The Witcher. You guys played The Witcher? Witcher 3?
Yeah, I love
Okay.
The Witcher 3.
Witcher 3 on PS4 runs at 30 frames per second. And it's not in 4K, so I guess it runs at 1080. They came out with a complete edition for PS5.
Oh,
Okay.
here we go.
It's got all the DLC,
Sure.
runs at 4K 60. That's what I'm thinking this is. That's it.
Are these like
Nothing
What-
more, nothing less.
Are these
Yeah,
what you
very
would
minimal
consider
work.
to be like tide you over titles?
Hmm.
Like we're gonna give you this to tide you over until the next big thing.
Yeah, they
Not
like to
being
some
made by the
Zelda.
Zelda
so.
team.
Yeah, and even if it was, it could have just been like a couple people just messing around with DLSS because they're learning it for the new Zelda game, like they did with Wind Waker HD. That was a learning game to help them with HD development of what ended up becoming Breath of the Wild. Wouldn't be surprised if they have a small team messing around with DLSS on the new platform and they're saying, "Hey, if you're gonna mess around with this, let's use a game we've already made to learn, and then let's just
Yeah.
release the damn thing again."
So the point I wanted to make,
Yeah.
though, right, is if this is something we see materialize publicly, that it could come with the implication that future Zelda games are going to be 60 FPS, and I think that says a lot if we're talking about mainline Zelda game.
I think they want it to be 60 FPS.
Oh, we could get
Sure.
back to that Wii U tech demo.
Because I will say this: if they didn't want it
Remember
to be
that.
60 FPS, I don't think they would have made Skyward Sword HD 60 FPS. They didn't have to
Or
do that.
Any of the 2D entries in the last decade.
Well, there's only like 2 that have. Well, there's only been like 1 in the last decade. Technically, there's only been like 1
A Link Between Worlds,
Link Between Worlds. Yeah, that was the big
60 FPS.
But
Link's
the prior
Awakening
ones
remake,
weren't. Yeah,
60 FPS.
yeah. I was not counting Link's Awakening remake, but yeah,
Sure.
obviously.
Yeah.
I think, and I think that's something to be a little bit excited about. If you guys is like, the Zelda team's going to push the system because that's what they do, right? That's one thing we've now learned every single generation. They're going to take this system to do whatever the hell it can do with game number 1. That's just how it's going to go, and it's going to be coming out, from what we can tell, anyways, probably within the heart of when this system's at the height of its popularity. So they're really going to be pushing like, this is what this system can do. Everyone's talking about PlayStation 6. Yeah, look what we just dropped. That's around the time that the next big Zelda game is going to
We'll
come.
at least get a trailer for it.
And
by
I
that
think one thing that might happen is they might not even go for 4K. They might go for 1440p upscaled, which will still look fine on 4K TVs,
Yep.
and keep 60 FPS and still push the system to the max it can go. And that's just obviously a theory, but I think that we're seeing that they're starting to have more and more 60 FPS games, especially with the remakes and remasters. And I kind of feel like they're getting a good feel that they want that to be in the big ones. They just always had some sort of limitation that prevented them from doing that. And now they have this technology available that can enable higher frame rates, higher resolutions. You just got to choose which way you want to implement it. And I think they may actually lean more towards the frame rate over the resolution, especially because in handheld you can only go to 1080 anyways, supposedly. So it's and a ton of people are only going to play in handheld. So why would you gimp to 30 FPS just to hit 4K? So I think they'll try to find a middle
I
ground.
mean, they also could have 2 different ways to play the game, right? Performance mode and
well,
fidelity.
if they decide to do that, they haven't done that before.
Yeah.
You never know.
I'll just say that I know people who are turned off by, say, Tears of the Kingdom, who purely because of the frame rate, which for me, just perspective, like 30 FPS is not a problem for me. Like, I don't have an issue with Tears of the Kingdom's frame rate. But when we're talking about people who typically play on high-end PCs, they have a different standard, right? And so if you're trying to have Zelda reach that larger audience, getting to 60 FPS is notably important.
Wow. When we talk a larger audience, what are we talking about? 30 and 20 million, you combine those 2 games together, it's almost half of the total sales of the entire series.
Yeah,
So, how much larger does it get? Is what I'm trying to figure. We're not going multi-platform.
All right. From a business perspective, you should never think you've hit your ceiling. You should always.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
I think they hit their ceiling with what they wanted to do with the world of.
Listen, live action Zelda is going to do wonders for this. Like I don't think we've seen the best selling Zelda of all time.
You think Zelda's gonna? Now that's a bold take.
Is it?
I think it is.
I'm 32. I still have a long life to live. Like,
I think we'll have a higher selling one too.
Yeah, you'll see.
And I've been there from
Zelda
the
release
beginning.
in your lifetime that I won't. So maybe it'll be that one.
With the
I'm
movie,
sure you'll see it too.
with the movie coupled with the game release,
It might even be the
could do
next Zelda
wonders.
game.
It might even be the next one.
I just
Direct
hope
mainline.
that I just hope that live action Legend of Zelda I just hope it's not corny and cheesy. Like I
Hey,
hope.
hold on.
I
Wait a
don't
minute.
think the director's gonna
that's
do that.
offensive.
Excuse me, princess.
I'm a big
Classic.
movie guy, so I've been like following all the interviews with the director because every time he gets interviewed, he's asked about the movie, and
Every
every
time.
time he talks about the movie, I get just a little bit more confident because he's like, "I'm a Zelda fan who loves the series. I want it to be good."
What's your
He's-
favorite Zelda
That
game?
is
Nah,
what
not gonna
I
tell you
want
that.
to
But
hear.
that was the right answer.
No,
was.
no,
It was
because
the
you're
right
gonna
I don't-
piss people
It
off.
was
You
the
know
right
what?
just
answer.
don't. I don't want this movie, if it does happen, like I don't want this movie to be like the Sonic live action or the Mario live action. And the reason that I say
won't
that
be.
is because I love both of those movies. I even like the second Mario one, or not the second Mario one, the second Sonic one.
Technically, the Mario movie is the second Mario movie. Technically.
Oh yeah, technically it is. I like the original one too.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
So do I. So do I.
It's
Hey,
funny.
I added a new co-host that likes it. Sabrina likes. Dude, I don't feel alone
I
anymore.
bought it for you.
I don't
Right.
feel alone anymore. I love
It's
the original Mario.
I got to
movie.
show you
More
guys something
nostalgic.
later then.
But I will have to say this, being like a young millennial, I'm one of the younger millennials. Being a younger millennial, I do have to say I cannot stand millennial humor anymore. I can't take it anymore. I can't take any more of the corny jokes and like the corny scripts and stuff like that. Like I personally, I just want, if they're going to make this Zelda movie, I want them to take it seriously and
Yeah.
respect it, because like personally, I think the Mario movie was cool, but I don't know, it just didn't feel like Mario to me. It felt like you could have replaced any of those characters with random characters that were made up, and it wouldn't have felt, it would have felt the same. I do like all of like the callbacks to Mario and all of the Easter eggs and the music and stuff like that. But if you take all the Easter eggs and the fun stuff out and you replace all of the Mario characters with characters that are random, I don't think it's anything Mario specific. So if they're going to make this Zelda movie, I want to see it be very, very, very Legend of Zelda centric. And I don't want them to make it a cheese fest.
Yeah.
Sorry if
well,
that's pessimistic, but like I've been kind of I'm
So-
done with the millennial humor.
What's funny is that I was gonna try and help you feel better by saying, listen, the way Nintendo operates now, they're extremely careful about their IP. And they go through a long phase of polishing, making sure everything's right. And there's a reason why Miyamoto worked hand in hand with the Illumination team to make the Mario movie. But you didn't think the Mario movie felt like Mario, so I don't know. I thought it was a really good representation for Mario. And as Nick brought up, Westball, I think, like, he's saying all the right things. He's clearly a Zelda fan. They picked the right director. King of the Planet of the Apes. It's a pretty good movie. Something I will say, and maybe this will ease the concerns of some, maybe it won't. But just take a look at that final trailer for Breath of the Wild, and take a look at that final trailer for Tears of the Kingdom. They know how to advertise the kind of story we want. Nintendo knows what us Zelda fans want. So if they're making something that's focused on telling us a story about Zelda as opposed to gameplay, I feel like they're going to do a good job. I'm not here trying to say this movie is going to win every single, award there is, but is it going to be a fun, good movie that feels like proper Zelda for the majority of the fan base? Yes. You're not going to please everyone. That's literally impossible.
I just
No.
don't want to see nailed it jokes in the Zelda movie.
I mean, maybe if it was based off the CDI games, like I could,
Right.
Yeah.
So,
the
but
cartoon.
I did like the Mario movie. I mean, like that being my complaint, I still liked it. I still thought it was good. So, but from what y'all are saying, it sounds like it's going to be pretty good. It sounds like from what Nick, you were saying, is that the director, if he's like a hardcore Zelda fan and he cares a lot, then I'm really looking forward to it.
Yep.
Well, this is like a dream of his, right? Like he had a tweet
Yeah,
going back
it
from
is.
2009, I think, that was like, if he had any dream movie that he could make, it would be a Legend of Zelda movie with like the style of Avatar, the CGI of Avatar. And I agree, like looking at the Breath of the Wild trailer and Tears of the Kingdom trailer, like they know what it is that we want, but we've never seen that in live action before. So I do think that that's probably going to hit a little different. Like they probably have a good idea of what story they want to tell and how they want it to look. But animation is just completely different. And I think that scared a lot of people when they found out that Illumination that it wasn't going to be animated and that it was going to be live action, because the Mario movie did work for what it was supposed to do. And it's not easier to animate. That's not right. But like, you can show a lot more with animation than you can live action.
I agree.
So I like to look at The Hobbit. I feel like the Hobbit trilogy is maybe a good approximation for what the Zelda movie will be. I wouldn't say Lord of the Rings, because Lord of the Rings is older and it's less CGI and a little bit more adult. The Hobbit is maybe a little bit. I get that, right? But I'm trying to find the compromise here.
I love just going full makeup, full non CGI.
Man. But we know there's gonna be CGI.
That is my one wish. Is that I'm
like
not
I don't want
opposed to
CGI Gorons. I want full costumed Gorons.
But did you not like not like how from a visual perspective, I thought The Hobbit did a pretty good job. Like, it's live action, but it's blended with CGI, and we see some pretty cool, very surreal, fantastical worlds. I mean, even look at the dragon. The dragon, oh my god, the dragon Smaug is one of the best dragons ever.
It's a good comp. That's a good comp.
Well,
That's
and you're not going to make
see.
an animatronic dragon. So, like, yeah.
Once upon a time.
All right.
I think
they didn't look very good.
I think if you can get like costuming from Game of Thrones or something, like get their costuming folks.
I'm just worried about
like the Legend of Zelda movie. I
don't want all the races.
Amazing.
Like, I don't want the Gorons and the Zoras and all that to all be CGI. I want that to be full costumes, man.
So
that'd be cool.
Actually, his Westball's most recent movie came out, and now we know he's moving on to Zelda after this, right?
Yeah.
So Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, I'm gonna watch it this weekend, right? But maybe that's a good movie for us to check out to kind of get a little bit of an understanding of what maybe we can expect. Now, it should be pointed out, Westball has not directed all the 8 movies. His recent one.
He hasn't directed a lot of stuff.
Didn't he say
his IMDb? He hasn't done a ton of stuff.
Hey, Nick, didn't he say something in one of his interviews about not doing the sort of CGI work they did in Planet of the Apes?
That's a good.
There was
question.
some sort of comment.
I read that.
Yeah,
I did.
What was said?
Well, what I had read was the actual apes. They're in costume. Do you guys know that, right?
Yeah,
that's not CGI.
Yeah.
In fact, I don't know if you guys saw this. It was on Twitter, but they were doing it to promote the movie. They had people in the ape costumes, like riding on horses, crossing the Golden Gate. Was it the Golden Gate Bridge?
Yeah, I think so.
Right? That would have been one of the older movies, though, right? Or is that still? Is it also the newer one?
They just had they did it just to kind of advertise for the movie. Like, there's people. You could see people on this bridge. I don't know if it's the Golden Gate. I could be wrong. I'm not familiar with the Golden Gate Bridge, but it was a bridge, and it just showed people looking at them like, what? Because it looks so real. Because they are in costume, and it literally looks like there's apes riding on horseback as you're walking down the street with your Starbucks. And you're like, what? And it was to advertise the movie, and I saw it on Twitter. I was like, wow, that looks good. And then, of course, we heard that he's directing. I'd heard that. I was like, okay, so maybe we're not going to be CGI heavy, which for me, I prefer it to not be CGI heavy. I like the blend idea, Andres. That's a good idea.
Yeah, blend. There's going to be CGI elements.
Yeah.
So,
there's no doubt.
Hobbit did well.
Yeah. So my perspective is merely like, when it comes to movies, TV shows, the idea is that you should be able to suspend your disbelief, right? You should be able to jump in and enjoy the product without having to think, oh, that reminds me of this. You should just be absorbed into it, right? It's kind of like with video games, so you want to be immersed, right? You don't want to be thinking about the outside world. So if there's CGI, that's fine, as long as it blends in and doesn't make us think it's CGI. If it looks real to us, that's fine.
Yeah, it's like I remember when Star Wars Episode 1 came out. Saw it in the theater. I was like, oh my God, so much CGI here. Episode 2, so much CGI. Episode 3, I think they heard the fans a little bit. It was a little less CGI. And then, of course, the newer Star Wars that came out were less CGI. But man, all that CGI back in the day was just way too much. So
I think I got soured on CGI because of the first two Ninja Turtle movies where they were full costumes and looked so damn good.
so good.
Letting go to the
best
third
way.
one. I know those were new costumes and those ones sucked and the whole movie wasn't very good.
No.
But the first two movies just really, really good. And then all the Ninja Turtle movies since then are heavy CGI and I hate it. I think it looks so unreal. It just doesn't. I know you're supposed to suspend your belief. They're mutant Ninja Turtles. They just look like they don't.
I love
just
the
not
full
real.
costumes for turtles.
Like it just adds
Nothing's
believability.
better.
There, but then there's things like I love Avatar. We all know that, like, yeah, that's obviously a lot of a CGI the entire thing. So I don't know. It's going to be a blend either way. So I just hope that it's done really, really well and really tastefully. Let's get into our next topic here.
Can I mention one thing?
Sure.
Guys, real quick. This is how much I love.
Oh yeah.
This is how much I love the
I
Mario
was already
movie.
smirking at this.
Look at this. Look at this.
Wow.
This is
Hell yeah.
It's got everything in there. The
Take a look.
script, all this.
Wow.
Oh,
If I zoom in, this is number.
very nice.
Can you guys see that number? 56 out of 250.
Nice.
Jeez.
Insane, but this is in 4K. It just
I
came
bet-
out.
wow.
I know, man. I saw this movie in the theater in '93. My grandma took me. She says, "What do you want to do for your birthday?" Easy. We go see the Mario Brothers movie. I know a lot of people hate it, but I love it. So even if it is cheesy like that, I don't think the new Zelda movie at all will be. I think it's going to be great. But even if it was, I'd still find a way to appreciate it.
I thought
'Cause
the
if we
movie
can
was cool when I
appreciate
saw
that,
it when
we
I was a
can.
kid.
Yeah, they make the bomb choose little twist toys, like
Yeah.
little pullback.
If I may, I know you want to continue with the rest and like move on, but with what Nick was saying, like if you look at his filmography, he really hasn't directed that much, but he did direct the Maze Runner series. Is that right? Did he direct all three?
I think so.
Okay. Well, I know that
least
those
some of
weren't
them.
like well received, but they were okay. And then he did Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, and that seems to be doing pretty well. So it seems like he is improving. The only thing I worry about is Avi Arad getting his hands in it and messing things up, because that is when you have Avi Arad and you also have a Miyamoto, who are both very stubborn in how they want things creatively. I think they could butt heads, and that could be a mess. But the biggest thing for me in a lot of movies today, and I know it's probably more of just a me problem, is a lot of movies today, they tell and don't show, when it should be the opposite, is show and don't tell. And I just have a feeling that that is the route that they'll go with this movie, is just over explaining everything, where it's like, I just want to watch the movie. I'm sitting here right now. Like, I don't need to be explained everything that is happening as I am watching it. Like, let me experience it. And I think that's what you need with a Legend of Zelda movie, like something that is so like
So is it going to feel like Breath of
fantasy
the
and-
Wild or like Skyward Sword?
I mean,
like Skyward Sword told you every little thing you
Right.
needed to do. Breath of the Wild is like, hey, figure it out.
yeah, and I think that's what you need. But with today's audiences, I don't think they're gonna go that route.
What do you mean? Like today's audiences need the exposition? I
Yeah.
feel like
Today's audiences
I don't know. I
are
feel like they I think that the fan base for Legend of Zelda is so massive that I think I don't know. I don't think they would need way too much exposition. I'm with you. I think that there should be some, but not too much.
They don't
for
have
sure.
to explain the entire Zelda series. That's not needed. This is going to be a standalone thing. And maybe there's a lot of references, but references don't need explanation. They're meant for us to kind of like, oh, look at that. That's kind of a cool little reference, right? Like, I mean, all I have to say is like, hey, here's the boy. He has a destiny to save the land. There's an great evil, and there's a princess. That's basically Zelda. Throw in Triforce and a Goron and some Zoras, and there you go.
No, but you know that they will do it, because just like how the Mario movie was, it was introduced to a new audience for some. Like that's the
Yeah.
first time that they were introduced to Mario, not by playing the games, but
Yeah.
because they saw the movie and then they wanted to play the games.
So I actually liked the Mario movie exposition. I thought the whole Brooklyn thing was really cool, personally. Like
Yeah,
that
was
was
my favorite part of the movie.
I agree.
It was
Mhm.
lore
I
that
thought
they never
that
really
was the
expanded on
coolest part.
beforehand. Yeah.
With references that you only get if you know. Everyone
But-
else is just fun.
I actually kind of feel with Link though, they would be more mysterious about his past. Like that just kind of feel like
I don't
just
know.
based off how Zelda is,
Sure.
like, you know, Link, we all like just looking at the history of like Zelda games and Link, like I mean, maybe you can make the same argument for Mario, but I kind of have the sense like they're not gonna have Link in a house with like, you know, 6 other people that were his family and tell him about his childhood. Like maybe there's an old man or a grandmother, maybe he has a sister, like a very small family. But I guess I don't think we need like 20 minutes explaining his childhood.
Let's get
Dep-
the Link
depends.
and Marin shit.
Depends. There
going.
was a hint recently that they're looking for a very young person to play Link, which means they might actually start with Link being extremely young. So there
Okay.
could be a pretty big part of the movie that deals with him as a kid.
He lives
So
with his uncle, right?
yeah, maybe the uncle or grandmother.
Uncle
Who the heck knows? Like
Is that a rumor?
what was it? Where did I hear this? Hold on. See, this is on the spot. I didn't have this written down because this isn't actually one of our
Yeah.
topics.
I mean, and that's not a bad thing either, right? Like it
It was
depends
an
on how it's
actor.
done.
It was an actor that was told by West Ball that you can't be Link.
Oh, I saw that. I saw
And
the
he's
headline, at
only
least.
25 and he easily can pass for teenage. And they're looking for someone that looks even younger than that.
Well, was it about age?
Yes.
Yeah.
The actor said it was about his age.
Maybe they're gonna do
West
a
Ball
time
literally
skip.
said you're too old to be Link.
Interesting.
Jake Ringo.
Even though he looks young.
What's up, Jake?
So, anyways, I find the whole thing to be fascinating. Obviously, we could dive deeper into the story stuff. You know, my only take on the story is, look, I think they are going to be very explanatory, and I think the people that are mad about it are the people that are like the most hardcore fans, maybe, that feel like I don't need explanations on what Zelda is. The movie's going to reach so many, like 30 million copies of Breath of the Wild. So there's going to be like 100 million people that see the movie. So you have to have that. You have to explain what the hell this is, because a lot of people are going to go and not know what Zelda is. And I think we need to suspend our, it's kind of like Breath of the Wild or the original Zelda or Zelda 2, where there's just not a lot of explaining. Things just happen. Yeah, that's fine in a video game. Movies are about telling stories. We have to start realizing they're telling a story. And so Skyward Sword is widely considered the best story in Zelda because the game is literally entirely focused on that story. It's very linear. Everything is told to you and shown to you while it's telling to you. That's really what, like, even when we talk about like The Hobbit and Lord of the Rings, they're very story heavy movies. That's what movies generally are. They're telling a story. And to do that, this is the first ever live action Zelda movie. You have to have the exposition at the beginning because people aren't going to know who the hell these people are. If you go into a movie and it doesn't explain anything and it just starts the adventure and goes and you still don't know what's going on, every movie that's been like that, movies like Aragon, they fucking suck.
I don't know. I think Dune did a good job.
Dune was so boring. I'm sorry. I just have to get that out here. I don't like Dune. And every time I say I don't like Dune, but I love Star Wars, as you can see by the post, everyone's like,
But-
"Oh, Star Wars is
You
just
know
a
what?
copy of Dune."
Wait,
And I'm
wait,
like,
wait,
yeah,
wait,
but
wait.
Star
I just want to
Wars
make sure I'm hearing
is
correctly.
entertaining.
Doom
It's okay, Nick.
or Dune?
Dune, the political
Dune.
sand movie that just came
Yeah.
out last year.
Yeah, the second.
Okay.
Is it the second one that just came out?
I thought we were
Yeah.
talking about
Listen,
Doom
I
Oh, I've
love,
never played Doom.
I
or
love
watched the
Dune,
movie.
but it's
the movie's
okay.
not good.
It's all good, Nick.
It's fun.
It's all good. You and
Uh,
me, we're straight. It's okay.
All right. We got to move on.
But
Um,
all I was gonna say is that they could do it like Dune, where like you don't go in with a whole bunch of exposition, but like halfway through the movie, you kind of understand what's going on.
All right, one
Uh,
little thing I'll add. What if the exposition is like the Wind Waker?
Oh, yeah.
all right. I'm just going to let you
Oh.
guys know this is a long episode. It's going to go
I'm
3
done.
hours.
I'm
Nothing
done.
I can do. I tried.
No,
I
no.
tried.
That's
We
it.
haven't
I'm
even
done.
gotten off topic
No,
one.
I gotta go to bed. Let's go. Let's move
That's
on.
fine. Going to bed. It doesn't matter, man. There's only 45 minutes of the show left. We're not even on topic 2. All
Bro,
right.
but Eric's
Yeah,
topic.
you can dip out. Everyone can dip out when you want. No one's required to be here but me. If it ends
Don't
with just
worry,
me on the show,
the
it's
Eric's hot topic will be negative times, so we're good.
fine. Yeah, I don't know about that.
We'll see.
So topic 2, it is what it is. We took as long as it took because we really.
But that was
spun off.
a double topic. You know, it was
That
two
was a
different
double
Zelda
topic.
stories.
It became a triple topic.
Yes,
the
actually
movie
did.
was not part of
Yes,
this.
actually, it was.
Oh, that's your fault.
Uh,
It's
I
actually
didn't
our
go there
fault.
with the movie. I
It's
didn't
a-
make it about the movie.
It may have been my fault. I don't know.
I don't know who did it. It just kept going. I'm like, this is great conversation, but we have like bigger topics. Would be good. You know what?
Go.
So topic 2.
Topic 2. Which game is better, Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom?
Ocarina of Time.
Skyward Sword.
No, it's just about these two games. We did a topic like this 2 weeks ago with what was it? Mario Galaxy versus
64.
Mario 64. So now this is pitting.
I'll
the
just
two
tell you
most
what I
different
think
styles.
right now to speed things up. My answer is currently Breath of the Wild. That may change years down the road, but it's still Breath of the Wild.
I'm going to say Breath of the Wild experience wise, Tears of the Kingdom gameplay wise.
That makes sense.
Fair
If
enough.
Tears of the Kingdom was your first of the two, would you have liked it more?
Probably.
I see that. Yeah, that makes sense.
I actually like them pretty much equally, but I would say their Breath of the Wild had me for the experience, the initial playthrough, the experience of the world for the very first time, the mechanics, all of that stuff. And then when we came back for Tears of the Kingdom, I thought that the storyline was better. I liked all of the new mechanics that were introduced, but it didn't feel, I don't know how else to say it other than it didn't feel as fresh. I don't know.
Like, it makes sense.
It's such a hard question
Mhm.
because Tears of the Kingdom cannot exist without the Breath of the Wild base. It's I love both games equally. Like when I do a top 5 games list, they're like right there because I acknowledge that Tears of the Kingdom can't happen without Breath of the Wild. But kind of to Sabrina's point, Breath of the Wild experience-wise, Tears of the Kingdom, everything else. Like I like the story, but I feel like in my opinion, Tears of the Kingdom is too big of a game because Breath of the Wild, I can jump in and replay that and do like the 4 divine beasts and like do all the quests and stuff, and I'm good. Tears of the Kingdom, I feel like there's not that I dislike. I love that they have the sky and the underground and the main level. I think that is a great addition. I'm only going to play it once, maybe twice, like 10 years down the line, but it's not like Breath of the Wild where I can just start it over and over again to try and go through it again because there is a lot more. So it's hard. I'm going to say Breath of the Wild.
Tears of the Kingdom does have the best ending ever, though.
That is
Love the
true.
Ending.
Yeah.
Ending is great.
I mean,
yet
from
to get
like
there.
from
And I
from final boss fights, emphasis on the S. Like the especially the very, very last one was way better than the very, very last one in Breath of the Wild. And then the story sequences that happened after.
Well, yeah, the Breath of the Wild one was basically handed to you if you did the 4 divine beasts. The Tears of the Kingdom, even if you get all 4 champions or 4 sages, like it just
Yeah, that was cool.
it makes it a little easier because you don't have to do the boss rush before you do the final boss. But that's about it. The rest of the boss fight stays the same difficulty, and that's nice.
I'm with Sabrina. Like, I think that the experience of Breath of the Wild was better than Tears of the Kingdom, but the gameplay of Tears of the Kingdom,
What?
it would be really hard to go back to playing Breath of the Wild without all the new mechanics that you have. But also, when Breath of the Wild came out, that was such a magical time, and everybody was talking about their gameplay experience and how it was different and the things that they were doing in it that you weren't doing. And I feel like with Tears of the Kingdom, because it was familiar, we didn't have that same kind of experience with it. Like, I feel like it went away too quickly versus how long Breath of the Wild was around. And I 2017 was a different time, so I get that,
Yeah,
but it was a magical time.
it was
Yeah.
very magical.
I mean, I think it's worth noting that sorry, I'll be quick. That back then, right? We had just come off of the Wii U era where we were
Yeah.
desperately waiting for like a really big, like epic, ambitious Nintendo adventure, and outside of Xenoblade X, we didn't really have it. So Breath of the Wild came around, and people were like, "Wait, holy crap! Nintendo can make experiences like this. Nintendo still has the magic." Because I think some people even back then doubted Nintendo still had it, right? Like we think back to like Ocarina of Time, Mario 64, like we hadn't had. There are right, but you know what I mean. Like Wii U era, it felt very sparse. And Breath of the Wild came in and just kind of blew our socks off. It was like arguably the best open world game ever at the time.
And to that point, maybe it does make logical sense that it's time for a remaster. You know, revisit that experience again. I don't know. It's different now, though. It is.
I
Yeah.
still have it on my Switch. I still play
that's
now.
The thing is like, not to go backwards on topics, but my biggest issue with the Breath of the Wild like remaster or whatever is that it's still a readily available game on a console that's not that old. If it was like,
It's still the current console.
Breath of the Wild, it was Wii U exclusive. So yeah, maybe we should bring it to the new console. I can walk into Target
I'll
and
ask
buy
you the
Breath of the
same.
Wild.
I'll ask you the same question I asked others. Does it bother you that everyone else does this?
Yes. I don't like that the other
Now,
consoles do it either.
I ask you because at least you're consistent that you hate it, even though everyone's doing it and
No,
doing
I
it
think it's
way
stupid.
worse than like almost a decade later.
To Nick's point, I think it is a little different when you have something like Paper Mario that is coming out in a couple weeks. Where, I mean, how old is that game? That was on GameCube, and we have no way of playing it. But with Breath of the Wild, we still have a system where you can play it, and so it does feel a little money grubby, even though it may be a better experience. Paper Mario is just exciting to a lot of people because they either get to revisit it from years ago or it's a new experience for them.
Yeah, good point. I'm over here. I'm sorry. I do have to interject real quick. I'm sorry, Thunder Steve. In my head, you will always be Thunder Stash. And I just I also want to know. So, what do you think? Is it Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild for you?
You know, I'm hearing everyone talk about it. You guys are all bringing up really good points. Ultimately, I never like to pick favorites. I don't do this. I just don't. I don't do it with anything. I really don't. Both of these games are so good, and they are so good for different reasons. If I absolutely had to pick one,
get off the
I'd probably go with Tears of the Kingdom because it's, to me, it's a longer game. There's more meat on the bone. And it's only because I'm getting more of the experience that was where the foundation was laid with Breath of the Wild. I'm getting more of it with Tears of the Kingdom. So I look at it that way, that I'm getting a bigger Zelda adventure. There's more terrain to cover. And I'm just getting more of what I already like from Breath of the Wild. So if I had to pick one, yes, I'd go with Tears of the Kingdom. Love them both, though.
Totally understandable point.
I have a concluding thought after listening to all you guys. What you guys have made me realize is that Breath of the Wild makes Tears of the Kingdom inferior by being the initial experience, and Tears of the Kingdom makes Breath of the Wild inferior by having more content. So both games are worse.
I think
good point.
I could not disagree with you more. I think that Tears of the Kingdom builds.
I'm joking,
off
so
of,
we're clear.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool. I'm sorry, it flew over my head.
You're good.
But
It's a joke with a hint of truth.
and maybe the truth just hit me. I don't know.
Eric,
Yeah.
where are you sitting? I know you haven't finished Tears of the Kingdom.
I
Has
have
taken
not
off your
finished it.
headset.
Yes. Hence why I was sitting like this.
That's with your own fault.
Eric,
You can beat
I
the
know I
story anytime you
can.
want.
I
man.
know I can.
It does not affect your ability 100% the game to beat the story.
Eric, I am so interested because every time I come on this podcast, you are playing either Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. And so I am super hyped to hear what you have
God.
to say, and please speak for the next 3 hours. We are
Yeah,
here
right.
for it.
Yeah, no. God, I mean, so far the story and the gameplay that I've experienced with Tears of the Kingdom is better than Breath of the Wild, but obviously the nostalgia factor is kind of strong, and Breath of the Wild does kind of hit really well because it also did open up and give us a completely different experience from any other Zelda game out there. So, it's God, I can't. It's hard to pick. I mean, I like the story, so I'm gonna have to go with Tears of the Kingdom, but Breath of the Wild is right there.
All right.
Jeez, I said you could talk for the next 3 hours, not the next 6 days.
Yeah, right.
I
I'll
think-
shut
I
up
think-
now. Good night,
Maybe
everybody.
that's the topic. I think we could move on to the next topic
I'm
and
just-
maybe
It's
So
so
I
Nate-
guess
it's so
I don't
Nate
get to
doesn't
say.
stop.
Got it. Cool.
you don't get a say in
No.
this.
No,
Come on,
no,
Nate.
the biggest Zelda fan here doesn't get to interject at all.
No.
Yeah, come
You just
on,
have
Nate.
to listen to the rest of us talk.
Like, I'll just say this. I don't think it's particularly close. But I have a very unique perspective on Zelda. When I played Ocarina of Time, it's famously not in my top 10 Zelda games. When I played it at the time, it was my favorite Zelda game of all time, one of my favorite games of all time. And it set up all future 3D Zelda games. I think all future 3D Zelda games were better than Ocarina of Time. And that's not an insult to Ocarina of Time. It set up everything we needed to do for the future of 3D Zelda games. And I think they all just did it better, but they couldn't be there if Ocarina of Time didn't do the walk into taking Zelda into 3D. Breath of the Wild was the walk into open world Zelda, back into it, I guess, because it originally was, and then it went away from that with A Link to the Past a little bit, and then got more and more linear as we went on. So Breath of the Wild is literally my second favorite game of all time. But I can already tell you it's very highly likely every Zelda game here on after is going to be ranked ahead of Breath of the Wild. It set the walk of open world that now everything I think is just going to keep being better than. Tears of the Kingdom can't exist without Breath of the Wild. I recognize that. But also, Tears of the Kingdom is just a vastly superior game. It fixed so many issues with dungeons that existed in Breath of the Wild. It fixed so many issues with the storytelling. And even though it keeps the memories and does a wonky thing, if this would have been how they did the memories in the first game, people would have less complaints about the memories in Breath of the Wild if it was managed in the way it is in Tears of the Kingdom. So technically it was an improvement on that. And now I'm very interested to see how they do story moving forward, as I think now they're going to get away from the memory thing as that being sort of what these two games did. The world itself, one of the big complaints about Breath of the Wild, it's empty. There's not a lot to do. Fixed. It's fixed. There is so much to do. Even forget the sky,
do a lot of
forget
fixing.
underneath. Even on the mainland, there is so many more things going on, so many more side quests, new enemy types. In the end, to me, Tears of the Kingdom is what we all kind of wanted Breath of the Wild to be. But Breath of the Wild couldn't be that yet because the Zelda team was just figuring out how to create a massive 3D open world game. So, to me, Tears of the Kingdom is significantly ahead of what Breath of the Wild is. Although I do agree with Nick with no K in that Breath of the Wild is easier to replay for the exact opposite reason. There's less to do, which makes it easier to replay, ironically. But I could also argue each playthrough of Tears of the Kingdom takes so long in comparison, that's why you don't feel like you need to replay. And I don't think not replaying games is a negative thing. I think you replay Breath of the Wild specifically because the world's fun to run around in and there's nothing else to do. It's a giant sandbox. There literally is nothing else to do. You have your 4 dungeons, you have a few little side quests, that's it. Whereas Tears of the Kingdom, there's so much to do that I kind of feel like when you get to the end, and I'm still playing the game because I'm going to 100% it. So I've already beat like the main story and everything, but I'm going to 100% it. Yeah, once I 100% it, I'll probably never play the game again, or at least anytime soon. But it's because I'm going to feel satisfied at the end. I got to the end of Breath of the Wild and did not feel satisfied. The ending sucked. Even the rewards that you would get for certain things weren't that fantastic. You weren't necessarily rewarded for all the exploration. It was fun, and I loved it, and I loved it more than all of the Zelda games because I love exploration. But you weren't really rewarded for any of it. Tears of the Kingdom does a better job rewarding you for it. So to me, I don't even think it's particularly close, and it actually really excites me for their next open world Zelda because now they're going to go away from this. So now everything's going to feel brand new. And won't be judged in this light of, well, Tears of the Kingdom wouldn't exist if Breath of the Wild didn't exist. Okay, well, now we're away from those games.
Can we agree, though, that the champions were better than the sages?
I think that's debatable. I think it's
Okay, so I'll
debatable.
tell you this: the champion powers are better than the.
That's what I'm
sage
saying.
powers.
Yes.
But the characters themselves, that's a different conversation.
The champion power. Yeah, I would say like the champion abilities were obviously significantly better than the Tears of the Kingdom ones. The Tears of the Kingdom ones are fine, like what the companions and stuff, what they do, but they do feel like they get in the way.
Yeah,
I know you can turn them off. I know they're completely optional. You can turn them off.
But I don't want to turn them off.
I don't want to turn them off either.
I don't want them to get in the way.
I know. That to me is also, by the way, that's the whole AI system they have. That is something I think with the power of Switch they can actually do better if they decide to have companions, where they can have a significantly better AI that aren't so annoying.
It just blows my mind that they could pull it off.
Yeah.
Anyways,
All those things running around with you.
No one's better than Tulin though. Like Tulin.
He's the only one I have consistently out.
Yeah.
All right, Andres, your topic's next.
Oh, hold on. What did chat say for the poll?
Oh, sure. I didn't announce the winner of the last poll either, but
No,
it's Tears of the
this
Kingdom.
one's better.
And it's not. What do you mean this one's better?
This poll's better.
Well, the last poll was nearly
cut into my-
50-50.
Yeah, I
This
know.
poll
Time
is
for my topic.
71% in one direction. The last poll was actually
Yeah, it was.
competitive.
Is it bad that after hearing everyone talk, I want to change my answer?
That's what happens.
Yeah.
People have good arguments.
I was so. I mean, I was right, but like the more
Yeah.
I thought about it, the quality over quantity,
Yeah, like I think
I
you don't
did it
still feel
too.
like you need to replay.
and I'm like, I
And
don't
the
know.
other thing is that how spoiled are we on Tears of the Kingdom? Can we go back to playing Breath of the Wild and have that good experience again, or are we going to be like, oh, kind of feel a little bit spoiled here?
I'll
Tears
say
of the
something
Kingdom
else,
did
even though
so many things better.
I'll add to that I remember for Breath of the Wild in the lead up to Tears of the Kingdom, I kind of felt like, man, I don't feel like replaying this game. That's not a good sign. And then I replayed the game in the lead up to Tears of the Kingdom, and then I was like, oh, this is my favorite game ever. And so with Tears of the Kingdom, I feel that there will come a time where I'm like, all right, I'm ready for my second playthrough fully, and then I'll be like, oh, yep, this is my favorite game ever. I just think it's fluid.
Yeah, the only thing I will give Breath of the Wild credit for that I think is literally better. Like we can talk about the champion abilities. I think it's a bit of opinionated. I do think that the starting area of Breath of the Wild is literally one of the best tutorial areas in any video game in existence. And Tears of the Kingdom isn't even close, in my opinion. But you got to remember why. Why is that the case? Well, it was introducing mechanics we now think are basic, like throwing bombs and climbing. You were expected to already know that in Tears of the Kingdom. So what was it trying to introduce? Oh, these 4 abilities that you only really need one of them to even get around.
The start of Tears of the Kingdom, though, is really cool. The way
It's
that
a
it
very
just
cool
kind of
start.
throws
Oh,
you
yeah.
in.
Oh, no, I
that
love the very
prologue?
beginning, like the little prologue section when you're rocking, you're already full powered. It's like that's a really badass beginning. I'm just talking about the tutorial
starting area,
area. The
yeah.
starting area, I think, is better, but the prologue leading all the way into jumping off and diving through the clouds to that is such a sick sequence. One of the very best beginnings to a game. Like, oh, so good. Even if you didn't even play the first game, I still think that beginning works. It's so good.
Yeah. So both games are really awesome. That's
there you
it.
go.
And depending on the day, you might prefer one over the other. Who cares? Anyways, now for the big main topic for
Oh,
the
God.
podcast. Well, let me double check the question. What was the question? All right, I got it. Did you put? Oh, you deleted it.
Of course I did.
Oh, come on. Okay, is
I
there any
literally
notes?
said I'm deleting it as soon as you chose it.
There's not any notes. Yo,
No,
just-
it was
you
a
just-
joke topic. It wasn't
Bro,
supposed to be
You
actually
just
chosen.
ripped the rug from right under me. You stole my
It's
topic.
pretty simple.
You
Is Eric
stole
hot?
my
That's what the topic was.
All right.
Huh.
All right. So
God.
I'll ask the question: Is Eric hot?
I guess
Eric,
we-
what's
Eric
the
is
room
cool.
temperature?
Yeah, that's gonna be my question.
Plead the
I
fifth.
don't know. It is pretty chilly in here. So,
So probably
Here, we'll ask the
not.
chat.
Oh,
Then we'll
God.
pull her up.
oh God, pull it up. Oh God.
Eric is too cool for school and too legit to quit.
Word.
I'm gonna say yes.
Appreciate you, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. But I think we can move on to the next topic while we
Yeah, there you
let
go.
that sort of decide.
I mean, the chat. We're ending the. Oh, I was going to end the poll right there. We were at 69%. Yes.
No.
Would have been the perfect
Damn it,
stop.
that would have been great.
Perfect stop.
That
A
would have been
little
perfect
off. All right. So I guess we'll get to our actual last topic. Basically, Andres Richard just punted.
Kind of.
He punted. He didn't want to host a real topic. Eric, what do we got?
Switch to specs leak and talking points. Hey, look at that. I can.
I put
maybe
notes.
Read. I could maybe read. So there is suspected to be 12 gigabytes.
Well, hold on. Before you say
Yep.
it, just because Eric might not know, all these spec leaks came from shipping data.
Yes, thank you.
Shipping data between Nintendo, Nvidia, and their manufacturing partners, and it's all verified that these are like things Nintendo has ordered to build the system. So like this is one of those leaks that it's not even like a speculative thing. It's public. It's verifiable. Nintendo's ordered these components to put together a system. So
Word.
and we actually know how many they've ordered. Like we know how big the runs are and everything. It's insane. Anyways, go on.
I did not watch your video, which is the source of this.
Well,
Source. Our source.
I'm not the
behind
source.
scenes. I know.
I linked
Yes.
my video as the source
I know.
because there's like a billion links
Yes, I
to
know.
look all
I
this stuff up.
just giving you shit. So I just made all that point to just say I didn't watch your video. So
What in ass?
yep.
Oh,
Bye.
he
Bye,
goes.
Felicia.
If he's gone, we can go back to talking about the Zelda movie.
Yeah. So
Can we just spend the next 2
yeah.
hours
Right,
talking about the
right.
Zelda movie?
I'll watch it tonight.
Good. We're gonna talk about the
So-
Zelda movie for many more years.
So okay, so to get actually back into this, so it's 12. There's great mighty Four hands. Very nice, very nice. All right, so there is supposedly 12 gigs of LPDDR5, 7500 MTS
Mega
RAM,
transfers per second.
mega transfers per second. 556 gigs of UFS 3.1.
256.
Sorry, what did I say? I said 256.
So I said 500.
No, I may have. I can't talk. I can't read. I told you.
You told me
I
you
feel
could
bad.
read.
Andres is the one who left you with this topic,
It's
by
fine.
the way.
It's fine.
So it's his
So
fault.
256 gigs of UFS 3.1 internal storage. Ethernet jack on the dock. Dock appears to have its own fan and amiibo support. Dimensions are bigger than the Switch OLED, but smaller than the Steam Deck. Show your image.
I don't have it actually.
Oh, way to go.
Oh, well, I was gonna put it
Ah.
up. Whatever.
All right.
Yeah, do you have it, Andres? I don't have it.
Oh, I had the tweet from Stealth that was summarizing a lot of the specs.
Oh, did you? Because I
Yeah.
have the comparison image, but it's on my other computer. I forgot to transfer it over.
Yeah.
then-
I don't have it. I don't have it local.
that anywhere.
And then there's display port converter for HDMI 2.1. Microphone magnets are present on the circuit boards and in the controllers and the tablet portion.
Oh, I do have the image of the size comparison. If that's what you're asking.
Yeah, that's what I was
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah, no, I figured, but I need to find it, and I found it. You know when like you save things, but you don't remember what you saved it as.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm not very organized, but I found it. So
cool. All right, yeah, we can get that shared up then.
okay, so this is supposedly the sizes of a few
I-
things, including the Switch 2.
No.
I haven't shown it yet. I'm being
Yeah.
dumb.
No, it's
No,
okay.
he couldn't find his behind
My-
the scenes.
Yeah, we're good. We're good.
All right, I got it up.
All right, here we go.
So, this is a Switch OLED, right?
Mhm.
This is the Steam Deck, and this is supposedly the size of the Switch 2.
Yeah, dimensions.
This is
Dimensions.
not actually how it will look, but well, I
Hmm.
mean, it's you know, an estimation, including the color buttons. But yeah, I mean, it's bigger, but not as chunky as this beast.
Yeah, sleeker than the Steam Deck for sure.
Way.
Yeah. What excites me, because this is not even we haven't talked about this yet because we talked about it last week actually, but like just the Joy-Con, that report about the Joy-Cons being magnetic and also bigger. Like, I just like everything we're hearing about this console. It's more powerful. The Joy-Cons are bigger, which to me says, okay, they're gonna be more comfortable to hold, and also hopefully not as, drift leaning.
I sure hope so, because playing with them tiny little Joy-Cons, even with my girl hands, yeah, I get hand cramps. So I'm like a pro
Yeah.
controller person for that reason.
I
Same.
mean,
Yeah.
even when I play in handheld mode, I feel like I need a grip or something. Like, I never play handheld without my Satisfy grip because it don't feel right.
It's
feel you.
owie trying
Yeah,
to play
it's-
like
feel you.
this.
I don't like that.
The Nitro
Yeah.
Dex has made it a lot more comfortable to play Switch because of that.
But do we want to walk through some of the things we've heard about this and kind of break down what it means? and how
Yeah,
we feel about it?
go for it, Andres. That's why I was hoping
Okay.
you'd take this topic and not leave it to the guy who doesn't know anything.
Oh, well, I mean, Eric's fine.
I
Okay.
can read.
Yeah.
Kind of.
So I don't have your spec sheet, but I'm just going to share what I saw.
That is totally fine.
Post.
Yeah,
Okay.
he does a good job summarizing.
Okay, and you could add whatever else. Like, let me
Yeah,
know
yeah.
when it's being shown. Okay, we're good. All right, cool. So, I'll just go, bit by bit. Right. So here's the first part: handheld right above PS4 before DLSS. And so this is actually a point that to me bothers me, not because of what it is, but because of people's interpretation of it. People hear right above PS4 and they get upset and just ignore this part before DLSS. This is actually extremely good news. In handheld mode, it's right above PS4. In docked mode, it's between PS4 Pro and Xbox Series S. That's awesome. And still before DLSS.
For context, the Steam Deck is not at PS4 level.
It's under PS4.
It's under PS4.
So
I just people don't realize this. All these AAA games are playable on Steam Deck. Steam Deck's not as powerful as a PS4.
yeah.
So like this is good stuff.
Yeah. Exactly. So like without accounting for DLSS in its weakest mode, it's better than the Steam Deck. But in handheld mode, it shouldn't be even that big of a deal. But then you account for that it's a little bit more powerful, it has DLSS. And for those that don't know, DLSS is basically this NVIDIA technology that uses AI to improve upon a number of things: resolution, performance, ray reconstruction, which basically is, ray tracing that gives us some really cool lighting effects. So it makes games look a lot prettier and run better. That's what DLSS does. It allows for a console to punch a lot higher than its weight. And what's actually interesting about this is we heard that there's 12 gigabytes of RAM. It's 12, right?
Yes.
It's
Yes.
12. And I think it was, what was it like? GDDR
LPDDR5X.
X. And the X part's actually really good too, because that means it's better than
Yeah,
just the
it's
normal.
better than what people were even hoping for the best. Like it's the fastest version of that RAM.
Yeah. Now I don't think it's as good as what the I don't remember the letters, but the 6, right? It's under that.
The GDDR6? No, it's not as
think
fast as that. No.
But it's better than 5. So it's a really good like middle ground, and it's 12 gigabytes of RAM, which is more than the Series S. And this bodes really well for DLSS. It's going to facilitate, those higher resolutions. It's going to facilitate bigger open worlds with more detail in them, more going on. It's very good news. This means, maybe Switch 2 can have open world Zelda, running at 60 FPS with DLSS running. And that's going to be awesome. Like this system is going to run games well. If they can run on Series S, it can run on Switch too. And it's not going to be compromised. I think that's my biggest issue with third-party games on Switch, is that they're compromised. I was actually very into the idea of playing another Crab's Treasure. That was that smaller game that was announced at the Partner Direct. It's not even like a big AAA game. And then I saw the trailer for the Switch version, and I was like, oh, yeah, I'm not buying this. It's just too often that games look like a choppy, lower performing, lower resolution version than on other platforms across the board. I shouldn't say across the board because there are exceptions, but it's too common. And so on Switch 2, when we see these specs, it comes with a promise that games are going to be running well. I'm not saying they're going to be running, as good as PS5 version, but there is some level of diminishing returns, right? Like, I don't necessarily need everything to be running at 4K. I just want things to look sharp.
Yeah.
So that's going to be good news for me.
I think it is. I think things are going to look sharp. I think it sounds, I mean, I'm hype. I'm ready.
I agree.
I want
These-
to put
There's
this
still
in
more, but,
perspective.
yeah.
Put this in perspective. Yeah, we can get to the other stuff in a moment. The perspective is a lot of people have been basing what they think Switch 2 is going to be and kind of laughing at it based on some Digital Foundry videos they did last year where they tried to try to create the Switch 2 with current hardware and all this stuff. It was very weird that they were doing it. Like they were doing it with a 2050 mobile when the leaks that are out there from the NVIDIA leak is actually it's the 3000 series of GPUs, not the 2000 series. So why were we even using that in the first place? It's a fully customized chip, so there isn't actually any piece of tech out there that has what this is using exactly to a T. So it was hard to compare anyways. And a lot of people that say, oh, it can't even run the Matrix demo, or look at it struggle to run Fortnite and Unreal Engine 5. It can do it, but look at the struggle, which is hilarious because Switch is running Unreal Engine 5 Fortnite right now. Yeah, it's not great. Yeah, it lags, but it looked like it was running it better than his little hypothetical Switch 2 was. So clearly there's something not right with the way he was doing those comparisons. And people were taking a lot of that as gospel. These specs came out, by the way, and they have blown away what Rich was doing with his hypothetical Switch 2. So it's this is without even us even knowing clock frequencies or any of that stuff, because there's rumors out there about that stuff as well. Only rumors. We don't have any fact-based leaks to back up those rumors, but like we did for the magnetic Joy-Cons thing we had last week. What was cool about that is the shipping data actually backs up that information.
And didn't we also hear about there being fans?
Yeah, fans. A fan in the dock and a fan that's in the system, which, I mean, yeah, there's a fan in the Switch, so that's not a surprise.
Right, but in the dock is really cool because, so for those that don't understand how the Switch works currently, right, the Switch line, right, Switch 1, it's not actually more powerful literally when docked, but the visuals are better when docked because when docked, it's connected to an external power source. So they no longer have to account for the battery consumption. You have to account for that when in portable mode. So the clock speeds are literally lower. In other words, the system is not outputting as much visual fidelity, basically, in portable mode. That when in the dock, they can do that. They can raise it to higher clock speeds. So the Switch does run games better in docked mode. And so what's interesting about Switch 2 is that if this part about of the fan being in the dock is also true, that means they can clock at an even higher speed. Because what's funny is that technically Switch has a higher clock range, but Nintendo doesn't allow that to be available for consumers because it gets very hot. But if there's a fan in there, the Switch 2 can clock to that extra level of clock speed power, can go up to that higher limit and not really worry about heat as much with that fan inside there, that extra fan inside.
Yeah, they're not worried about how hot it is in the dock. They're worried about when you pick it up out of the dock, it being so hot, especially for kids, that it could be, I don't want to say it's going to be a big burn situation, but it could be one of those hot drop things. They don't want that to happen. And the idea of a fan in the dock would be, hey, if it has some sort of connectors that can just even tap the heat pipes and take some of that heat away to a separate fin stack with a fan, then, and there's ways to do this, by the way. There's laptops that have optional fan hub accessories that literally they literally just have these little connection points that just touch the heat pipes and help dissipate more of that heat so you can get higher clocks. So it's not even a new concept. It's been out there. No one expected Nintendo to do it because it's extra. It makes the dock more expensive, but also if it enables it to run at clock speeds that are just amazing, it could have an even bigger gap between handheld and and dock mode. But I will note, using DLSS and dock mode, the claim is that the screen's 1080p. That's still just a rumor. We don't know that. The shipping data doesn't have. It just says it's a touchscreen, which that doesn't really tell you anything about it other than it's a touchscreen.
There were just reports that suggested so.
The reports are all suggesting that it's 8 inches and 1080p and all that. What I find fascinating, though, about DLSS is there's been a lot of testing done with it on low-end hardware. You could take like a 480p image and make it look pristine at 1080p. Like this is totally doable, which means, yeah, the gap might be bigger in terms of clock speeds, but on docked mode, you're still going to be targeting 1080p to get DLSS upscaled to 4K. So there's going to be more power needed to make your games run natively at 1080p. And handheld, you don't need to target native 1080p. You could target something significantly lower. You could target Wii resolutions and have it look
480.
native 1080p, which is insane because what that's going to mean is more power statistically won't be available in handheld to make the games look almost as good as they do in docked mode, even though docked mode is technically a significantly more powerful thing. It's wild to me. DLSS, it's not magic. It's not magic. People always say, "Oh, Switch fans," no, it's not magic. But I now have DLSS in my system. Let me tell you, from the consumer side, it feels like magic. It feels like a button you just hit, and everything is better.
I need to say this. You're saying something right now that I think speaks really well to what some of us think is the code name. So it's been referred to as ounce or something else according to Pioro. There's speculation that it's actually OZ, which stands for ounce in here.
Yeah.
But it could be OZ as in Oz, as in a great powerful wizard, which is seemingly magical, but behind closed doors is actually just extremely intelligent technology, as is the Switch 2.
I like that.
I like it.
There you go.
Good point.
Makes sense.
I like the breakdown.
Speaking
So
of
it could be a
DLSS,
good time.
did you guys see Majora's Mask running with DLSS? The video
Was there like
came
a
out?
ray tracing thing or something?
Yeah, it's with the N64 recompilation.
I saw like a couple things on Twitter, but I haven't looked at footage yet.
So it's insane. I have a version of Ocarina of Time on my PC. The ship of Harana, is that what it's called? Nate, you familiar with that?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Ship of Harkana.
Yeah.
This runs, at 60 frames per second. In fact, I run it at 120 on my PC. And it looks amazing. But what they're doing with the DLSS and Majora's Mask, the way they're implementing it, it's running, I think, in 4K. Not for sure. Could be 1080, but 60 frames. Ray tracing, water reflections, everything, lighting, you name it. And it's just insane. You guys got to watch the video to see how good this looks. But seeing that, what they did with the N64 game, and this is you could say it's the modding community. Imagine what Nintendo can do.
Yeah.
With their wizardry.
It's
with
almost
this
funny.
power.
Like that kind of tech almost like makes older games stand out more because of the jump.
Yeah. And would they apply it to NSO games? Because just seeing this, it made me think oh man, what I'd love to see Wave Race with this.
Good.
Oh,
That sounds amazing.
give me a next gen Wave Race. Give me a next gen Wave Race. Oh, dude, that
Yeah,
was so
let's see some NSO games get the
If it's
treatment.
as good,
Yeah.
cool. Oh,
if the DLSS is as good as I've seen it be,
Dude.
because I don't have a lot of experience with it, right? But I've been able to see stuff like this,
If
Zelda to run. If
I
it
never-
can do this,
I never thought about that. What if they applied DLSS to NSO games?
I
I would
think this is going
die.
to
It
be
would
the
be so
Switch
good.
selling point. Is the DLSS like that's going to be the thing
Oh,
that really
Yeah.
separates it and makes people make that jump?
Yeah.
Is like it does this to games.
yeah,
they
it
would have
feels
to-
like magic, but it's not. But
So if they just do like the resolution bump, that'll be. I mean, it's not that big a deal because the game's already upscaled to 1080 now, and they look a little bit sharper. But if they do the ray reconstruction, where they're literally adding in new lighting effects,
yeah.
that could change a lot. That could
Imagine
change a
how
lot,
much
yeah.
value that would add to NSO. Like it wouldn't just feel like the extra thing that you get for paying for your online,
That's totally
because it's
different
like, hey,
experience.
these games look extra nice.
Yeah. And
And that's why
Nintendo
you gotta
charges
pay
you
for
the
it.
extra price.
Yeah.
They probably would. Yeah, I was thinking
Yeah.
that too. But it would be.
I just
want
want to mention this part so I can stop sharing. There's also the mention of storage,
Yes.
right? So it's not quite VNAND apparently, but it's like the next best thing in UFS. Do you know what that stands for, Nate? UFS? I don't.
Oh,
Or at least I don't remember.
I don't remember off the top of my head.
I think I probably
I did look it up for my video. About it.
Universal flash storage.
There we
Okay.
go. Thank you.
Yep.
yeah, so I've lost it. Yeah, that's good to hear. And it's not that much slower than the Xbox Series, which is that's a good
and
thing.
now to be fair about the 2.4 gigabytes per second thing, that's theoretical max. It'll probably be clocked lower than that. But the point is, because the Switch's internal memory is also not clocked as fast as it possibly can run. It's clocked lower, which makes sense for battery life and stuff like that, and longevity of the drive. It's actually good not to run it at max speeds. But basically, the consensus is that it is fast enough, even if it ran at like 1.5 gigs per second. That is totally fast enough to do all this instant loading and everything that everyone keeps advertising that, oh, you need these Gen 4 SSDs at PS5. You don't need a Gen 4 SSD to do any of that stuff, as has been proven, by the way, by those games getting ported to PC and running on things that are not Gen 4 SSDs and literally doing the exact same thing. I'm not saying that, yes, like Rift Apart, yeah, it's got some the loading issue hitches a little bit when you're on a normal spinning disk drive. But if you're even on just a normal little 3.5 inch old school SSD, dude, the instant loading is still there. So like it didn't need those Gen 4 speeds to do that. So that was kind of what people were excited about. Like, hey, this actually is fast enough that the games that do take advantage of storage speeds for faster loading and faster gameplay, so more seamless transitions between cutscenes and gameplay, this will be able to do it. There's no reason it can't. So it's really exciting. The only reason would be micro SD cards are not this fast, but micro SD Express that releases later this year is. And there's a lot of speculation that the platform would support Express, but probably still support the old ones as well.
It'll be weird to not allow micro SD cards.
Well, it'll allow micro SD. Yeah, I just don't, especially with backwards compatibility.
Yeah.
It'll be interesting if there's any notes that there's performance hitches on certain games if you use it.
Yeah, that's the tricky part, right?
Thing,
because so we also heard that it's gonna have 256 gigabytes of internal storage, which is a lot better than what Switch had or even Switch OLED. But
I can install at least
you're gonna
two
need
games.
more. You're gonna need more than 256 if you're downloading a lot of third-party games.
I remember when they gave us the 64 gigs in OLED. It's like, great. I'm like, yes, I can almost install NBA 2K.
2K is the worst.
They call it, and we're getting Call of Duty, and that's going to be like 100 gig. But hey, 256 at least means I can install 2 of those large big games, not just one. So that's nice. Nintendo, it will install 1 billion Nintendo games because their files aren't usually too big. One thing I do think is fascinating though as well is that I do wonder, like if the games are just target 1080p and use DLSS to go to 4K, are the game files actually going to be that big? Because it's the resolution of the files they're using that cause these things to balloon so big. If they're just saying, hey, nobody actually target native 4K, just target 1080p and use DLSS, the game files could actually still be pretty small, at least compared to what the other systems are having, where people are trying to get like 1440p on there with minor upscaling to 4K and stuff. So
that's what I thought. That was exactly my thought. And when I saw 256, I'm like, yeah, obviously that's not a lot by today's standards or what we have with PlayStation or how we're expanding PS5 storage. But I was like, I think that's going to be enough for Switch because they're going to have smaller game sizes.
My biggest thing was the storage just need to be big enough that there's not a single game that exists on Switch you can't put on the internal storage or on Switch 2. Because right now there's games you can't put on the internal storage on Switch. I didn't want that to happen with Switch 2, and I think 256 very future-proof for the next 5-6 years, that there won't be any game released on the platform you couldn't put on internal storage. And if you have fast enough internet, you could just always use internal storage, just archive games and stuff. But I think as long as I just really hope it supports micro SD card Express, because if it does support Express, those speeds are like as fast as this. So that would be like would be the way to go. Oh, they're going to be
like
brand new tech. It's going to be expensive.
That's my thing, right? So like I have a 400 gigabyte micro SD card in here, right? And then obviously this is the launch day Switch, and that's a decent amount of storage. But I'm still archiving things, and I'm like, I don't need this right now,
Yeah. I do that, and I have a terabyte, and I still have to archive things.
Same. Yeah. So like, we're gonna have to run into that, but it would be nice
Nintendo,
to be able to buy a big, kind of SD card.
You could take this idea for free. Just let us put 2 micro SD cards in, baby.
Yeah.
Let us put 2 in. Lots of devices let us do it. Why not a game system? Remember back in the day when you could put multiple memory cards in a game system?
How about four?
Mhm.
Come on now.
Just go crazy.
I remember back when you could
It literally
put
cost
four
pennies
of
to
them
put one
there.
of those little things on the board. Come on now. Just you hide
I'm
it
so
all underneath the
glad,
kickstand anyways. Let's go.
I'm glad we moved away from those proprietary memory cards that we dealt with for 2 decades,
59 blocks.
decade and a half. Yeah.
How many of those got lost, destroyed,
Kept
forgotten
resetting
about?
themselves, mad cats.
By the
Oh,
way, I
God,
don't think
Mad
they're going to
Cat.
give us multiple ones. Like I see some people who are watching the live version of the show being like, "Oh, that's copium." I'm like, "It's not copium. It's hopium." There's a difference. I know there's only going to be one, but I would like there to be more than one. It's a feature I would
Reminder
enjoy.
that the word
agree.
no really just means thinking with great confidence because no one knows anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't really technically know anything. I expect there to only be one, and it'll support express and regular SD cards.
I have a genuine question about DLSS because I don't know a lot about it.
Sure.
Does it work on old games,
No.
or is that why
It has to be applied. There has to be a patch.
okay? So
Yeah,
I
it's-
can't
it's-
just get Switch 2,
And
plug
it
in
doesn't-
Xenoblade
no,
3,
no.
and now it looks better.
No, they actually have to develop with that in mind.
It's
Yeah.
hardware. It's hardware level. It's not like so. There is a version that can sort of do that. It's called FSR. And Nintendo does use it, by the way. They use FSR in some of their games, only 1.0, which is like the worst version of it. And FSR is still technically going to be available as well if people want to use it. Because, again, it works on everything. It's an AMD developed tech that can be used on everything, but it's software level where it's ran by the OS. And the OS can then apply these AI techniques to upscale. The reason people are excited about DLSS is it's considered a better version of this because it uses actual hardware for it, not a software layer on top of your game. So it's used dedicated cores that aren't being used for the game. They're specifically for DLSS. Now, the thing is, there's power draw with that. So there could be some fallbacks to whether you use it or not. Could change profiles on how fast things are in handheld, especially. I don't think it's going to matter in docked mode when they have access to virtually unlimited power. For what they're doing anyway. So I think that DLSS is just one of those things that can be put on all the old games, but it's still going to be reliant that they have to do it. Like when we had that talk earlier about Breath of the Wild and like not wanting, we don't want this. I'm like, well, what if all they're doing is just DLSS in this thing? That's really all they're doing. Like, yeah, they would have to put work into it, but it's not hard work, if that makes sense. It's very easy to modify to put it in. Hence why we're seeing so many people bring these games to PC and just quick modifying it in because it's not super difficult to apply. It's very easy to work with.
So it could just be
also
a $10 patch.
Also note, there is not a single system at the moment in existence that has a set piece of hardware with DLSS. Doesn't exist anywhere. All the comparisons we've seen so far have been with PC games that are not specifically built for DLSS hardware.
We don't really know what this thing can do. This happens every generation. People always underestimate like the abilities of saying it's been customized for a particular environment. We don't know. That's why I don't like hey, let me take this PC and do these hypothetical like comparisons.
You can't even run the Matrix demo. Okay, well, we heard it was running the Matrix demo in 4K 60 with ray tracing.
With ray tracing was supposedly better, if at least not comparable.
It's almost like they would have modified it to run specifically on that hardware.
Yeah, it's just a different
something that doesn't happen on PC. I love PC gaming, by the way, but things aren't made for specific pieces of hardware on PC. They have to support such a wide range. That's why all the AAA games run on Steam Deck. But they don't run as good as they probably could if the game was made just for that Steam Deck hardware.
All right.
So basically, we won't know until we see it.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but it's hard stop time for me tonight. I'm sorry. I gotta go. I'm
emotional.
sorry, Nate. I'll be back.
I mean, we're at the Q&A stage, basically. Does anyone want to say anything?
We haven't heard from Cheesy.
Well, we still have all the Q&A section, too, still.
And we haven't heard from Cheesy on this yet, so.
Yeah.
Well,
I mean,
hold on. Sorry, Cheesy, before you go.
Yeah.
I know Sabrina's leaving, so Sabrina, you want to just, again, let everybody know where they can find you, and then...
Look at Eric being a
head
good
out
co-host.
And then Cheesy can step in and go from there then.
Go watch your recent, 1 hour, 47-minute video.
Oh, yes. I did just recently release one day ago, 2 days ago. The days are blending together. Yeah, those projects, they take so long to make, but they are worth it in the end. But yeah, you can find me. My name is Sabrina, but you can find me at Saffron City TV over here on YouTube. Hey, that's me.
Whoa.
You can also find me at Saffron City TV on Instagram as well. And yeah, come check it out if you like to learn about Pokemon regions and like to like Pokemon in general. Anyway, I appreciate you guys for having me on. I always have so much fun every time I come on the podcast, and I hate to have to go so early, but I gotta get my butt in bed because I gotta get up and clock in the morning.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
See you later, Sabrina. Thank you for being
Have a
here.
good
Have a
one,
good
Sabrina.
Thanks, Sabrina.
Alrighty, nice
Bye.
to meet everybody. Nice to meet you, Cheesy. Good to see you again, Nick with no K. Good to see you, Thunder Steve,
Good to see you.
Eric, Andres, Nate. It's always a pleasure. We'll see y'all later.
Nice to
Have a
meet
good
you.
Good night.
All right.
All right, Cheesy, lay it on us. What do you think?
All
buddy?
right.
Give it
So
to
when
us,
it
Nick.
comes to hardware and software development, I am complete. Like all of this just goes over my head. So the way that you guys are explaining it is great because it gives me some better context of what we're talking about, and all of it sounds great. Like I mean, I don't know what I can add to the conversation other than like this is a step in the right direction, and I'm just ready to play some games like Andres was saying, like Another Crab's Treasure. I did play that game. I had a lot of fun with it, though it kicked me out like 5 times and soft locked me twice. I still had a good time with it because, I mean, it's a Souls-like. If you can't get past that, then I guess you're not going to get past the rest of the game. You know, like that's the ultimate test. Can you keep playing the game if it locks you out? So I don't know. I mean, like there's definitely games that I would love to play on Switch that just aren't playable right now. And if that's what the successor is going to do, then that's awesome.
Hell yeah. Anyone else have anything they want to say?
I just
I mean,
want to know.
I'll just add to what Cheesy was saying. Like, there's a lot of third party games. Like, I have PS5 now, so like I can play a lot of games that I've been wanting to play, which is cool. But also, I want to play them on my Switch because not just because I have a Nintendo bias, but because I like having my games be portable. Like, there is something to that. Like, I really liked it when they had Dark Souls remastered on Switch, because it made the experience portable, which was really good. Portable Souls is awesome. And so, like, you know, if there was like an Elden Ring port down the road with the DLC, even though I've just recently beat Elden Ring, I think that's going to be something that's going to be really good to happen at some point. You know, like there's just a lot of games that I think would benefit by purely being portable. I think that's one of the reasons why the Switch was so successful, because of that portability factor. And I think now that we've been enjoying it for 7+ years, we take it for granted that it's literally 2 in 1. That matters for a lot of games. And so Switch 2 being able to run third-party games better.
I think that people are not, like, general Nintendo fans aren't ready for the leap we're about to see, because this is the leap from PS3 to PS4, which ended up being a pretty significant jump. It feels way more significant than PS4 to PS5 has felt. So and you could argue Switch was weaker, obviously, than PS4. So the leap's going to be even, or like, it's just going to be ginormous, because we're jumping ahead of the PS4 a bit with a system that, you know, was kind of on the level of the prior gen system. So I feel like you're going to be very impressed. And a lot of haters are going to be really tugging at very, very minute things to talk about how the Switch 2 sucks.
All right,
Like,
I got one.
Like the resolution's not native. It's not native. Okay, no one gives a fuck.
No one cares.
No
Yeah.
one cares. If it's DLSS and it looks almost as good side by side, nobody's gonna care.
Just to add something to the conversation, because portability is huge for Switch, does it make you sad that the next successor is a little bigger?
No.
For me, no, because I want an 8-inch screen. I'm excited for that. I'm also excited for bigger Joy-Cons because the Joy-Cons are tiny. But
For travel reasons?
I was already putting it in a case anyway.
Yeah, I was gonna
Yeah,
say
where
we
I
do
put it in my
these
backpack.
Yeah,
all the
dude, I've been
time.
putting it in a
Yeah.
case and tossed it in my backpack this
The
entire time.
only thing I'm upset
So-
about is that I have to rebuy a bunch of accessories.
I
That-
also
there's
think
that,
if
yeah.
you take the Joy-Cons off, I'm pretty sure I'll still be able to slide it in pocket and Joy-Cons in the other.
True.
I don't really,
Fair enough.
I don't really think it's in that way. And I also feel like for people that really care about portability, I think it's a given. We're going to get a light version that's smaller at some point.
Oh yeah.
So
Yeah.
they're going to make a more pocketable, kid-friendly version anyways.
Yeah.
And one thing I will say about it being slightly larger is more so that Nintendo did something very smart at the beginning of the Switch era. It was heavily targeted at adults. We were talking about adult rooftop parties, not kids' birthday parties. Which, by the way, there aren't a lot of adult rooftop parties that even happen. But the whole point was they were hitting on the adult audience, and that kind of just stuck around the entire generation. They've only had the kid commercials really the last 3 years, and even then, the audience is still primarily adults from Nintendo's own data.
Yeah.
And I think what's nice with the launch model is why it might seem unwieldy for a child, but that's not who they're going to be targeting right out the gate. Even though, it's Mario, it doesn't matter. It's 3D Mario that adults want to play. They're really going to be pushing, hey, this is the new hip thing you want to get. And I think Nintendo might have learned something during the Switch era. When you create a new hip thing that adults want, kids want what the adults want.
Yeah.
Mhm.
When you're doing kids commercials, you're marketing that for parents to buy for their kids.
Yeah.
You're not marketing it for the kids themselves.
Yeah. When I remember when I first upgraded my Switch, the very first question from my kids was, "Do we get yours?" Because everyone has a Switch. I'm like, we'll make it happen. Don't worry about it. Birthdays are coming up.
One thing to comment on is kind of what Andre said about portability and how we take that for granted. I legitimately play games slower on my PS4 because I can't just take it with me. Like, I can't say, I'm going to sit at the doctor's office for a half hour, or I'm going to go hang out with friends, and while I'm waiting for them, I'm going to play my Switch, or I'm traveling somewhere, going on a trip. Like, Persona 3 Reload, I got 3 months ago, and I'm not even a quarter through the game because I have to actually sit down in front of the TV. Now, there's nothing wrong with that. I just got so conditioned to the Switch where I can I'm staying in a hotel, I can take it with me. I'm going on a plane, I can take it with me. And it's always there. So I can play it more frequently in those smaller clusters of time and not feel like it's such a big time commitment. And I'm glad that Switch 2 has that power to bring those games, because I've never played Elden Ring, so I would love if Elden Ring was on Switch. I've never played Baldur's Gate if Baldur's Gate was on Switch.
Those are good games to get
I
there.
know Persona 3 Reload might get a port this year, not this year, next year when the system comes out, but later down the line, and Persona 6 and all of those other games that are kind of locked on a home console would then have the ability to go anywhere and have the benefits of a hybrid system.
Do you have that moment where you step away, right, and you're away from your PlayStation? You're like, I want to play this. But I can't do it
all
right now.
the time. I
And
went
that
on a
shows
trip 2 weeks ago where I wasn't at home for the weekend, and all I wanted to do was play Persona 3, but I'm not lugging my PlayStation around with me everywhere. That's just, I'm not doing that.
PlayStation Portal.
I don't have a PS5. I have a PS4.
Oh, well, sorry.
That would do it.
Yeah, but you need to have a PS5, then you have to have a PlayStation Portal.
Actually, you technically don't need any of it because PlayStation 4 supports this as well. You can do remote play through your phone.
Can I do that when I'm not at home?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, they have an app for it.
Oh,
Yeah, you just got to bring a controller with.
that's good to know.
I haven't tried that.
Yeah, it works pretty. It was one of the things where people are like, does PlayStation Portal even need to exist when you can already do what it does? But it is. People end up enjoying for what it is. So, all right, let's get to. We got some fan questions, super chats. If you guys have any more questions you want to ask from the chat in our live version, you just got to super chat it in for as low as $2. And we'll start off with this one from Nintendo Switch fan for $2. Says Pokemon Legends Arceus. It's all right. It's Arceus. Is a top 5 Pokemon game. That is a statement. What do you guys feel? Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
Very
I can't say
correct.
anything.
Extremely correct.
I think it is my favorite game.
Period.
somehow.
You
No,
didn't
no,
even
no,
see-
no, no.
Yeah, that's it. You're locked
Pokemon
in, buddy.
game. Pokemon
Hey, what's
game.
wrong with that? Legends is
Pokemon
a good game.
Yeah, but it's not a top 5 game of all time for me. It is. I think at the top of my mainline Pokemon games. Yeah.
Without
After
a
I
doubt.
beat it, I was like, "Yep, this is up there." And I know I've been saying that. By the way, has anyone else been finding themselves saying that about a lot of games that came to Switch, like the new ones?
That's
I know that like recency bias is a thing, but I don't know what it is. Every new entry in a franchise on Switch, not all of them, but a lot of them feel like the best entries.
So, first off, my answer is yes, but I also want to speak to recency bias. Recency bias goes both ways. It's not just in one direction, it's in both directions. Hence the Tears of the Kingdom hate. But anyway, yeah.
And yet
I
Tears of
feel
the
that
Kingdom
way.
slaughtered in the poll. I know it's just one little community. It doesn't mean a whole lot in the grand scheme.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's get to this next one here. We have from Joycey J saying, "Yo, what if it's a Zelda game but Link's the narrator? Wake up, princess." Thoughts? Also, let's celebrate my 20th third super chat, Nate. Oh yeah, YouTube has this thing where every time she super chats, it keeps saying it's her third ever super chat on the channel.
Hell
That
yeah.
is interesting.
Yeah.
Extremely.
Yeah, YouTube.
So Link is a narrator in a game starring Zelda.
So that would be mind blowing because Link doesn't even talk.
Yeah.
But
That'd
we're
be
about to have a
funny.
movie.
Yes.
But
All
we
right,
don't know
so
if Link's going to
Link
talk in the
also,
movie.
Link also does talk. He's not a mute.
He
So-
also talks a lot.
I
in
don't know
manga,
why you're
if you
doing this.
read
He
that.
literally talks to NPCs. He's been doing it for 30 plus years.
We don't have vocal dialogue of Link in most of the games.
No, but that is a gameplay quirk to make you feel like you are speaking for him.
Yep. That's the whole
So-
reason it
It
was
is.
created.
They've even said it in interviews that he's not a mute.
Let me talk about a hypothetical here. So what if, let's say in this Zelda spinoff, right? This hypothetical Zelda spinoff, you play the game and there is a narrator. You think it's just an old man, right? But then at the end of the game, you find out this story takes place in the past, and the old man was Link
Yeah.
in that younger time.
Oh man! Sorry,
So,
Legend of Neo reference.
Yeah, right.
This
That'd be
would
cool.
be a future version of Zelda.
I don't know.
Like,
I mean, there's
I'm
so
trying
many
to- I'm
different, there's
trying to
so
think-
many different, so many different timelines.
well, I mean, like in the game, not necessarily the
So-
grand scheme of the
so-
timeline.
Just pick some random point in time, Princess Zelda's adventure, and there's a narrator that's an old man, a wise old man that's narrating, and at the end of the game,
Yeah, I think if it Link narrated, you wouldn't know it until the end.
right?
As long as he sounds like Morgan Freeman, I'm fine.
There you go.
Best
I mean, if
narrator.
you want to go the traditional 2D route, nobody says anything, and it's just a text box.
Oh, there you go.
And then you don't have to worry about anyone saying anything.
Got any thoughts on this, Cheesy?
I mean, I'm kind of with Nick. Like going back to the movie. I'm sorry, but I do think it would be kind of cool if Link
Should have
didn't
been a
talk.
topic this week. It's almost.
I
as if
know.
you
I
guys
know. I
needed
know.
one. It's
I think
almost
that
like
was
we
my
talked
fault
about it
too.
for
I
a
think I
half
brought it
hour.
up.
It's like a 35-minute like pseudo topic. I'm like, oh,
Well.
it's life.
I
That's
mean,
okay.
we
It was a
don't.
good topic. It was a
Yeah.
good discussion. I'm not
Yeah.
mad about it.
Hey, but what happened to the poll for Eric is hot?
It ended at 69%
69%.
that he is hot.
Oh, very good. That's how it should be.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if we ever hear Link talk. Like, I don't think he's a mute. Maybe there's some sign language happening, or he is talking. I don't know, but like, ideally, I think it would be kind of cool to not have Link talk in the movie and kind of be like a Wall-E situation, because I think you can say or show a lot with a character who doesn't talk, but there's others that can do the talking for them. As far as a game, though, I just don't know.
Based
I'm
on how
still-
you feel about the movie, I'm gonna just guess it's probably the same way you feel about the game.
Yeah.
Don't talk, Link. No way.
No, I mean, like, you can talk. I think we just, if that's something new, that's fine. I'm struggling with what a Zelda game could be. And like,
Oh, sure.
I love the idea of it.
That's why they call it
But
the Legend
again,
of Link.
I think yeah, I think you just need it to be different enough for it to be its own game. And
It
when
would-
you think of genres, like Nintendo has covered a lot of genres that I don't know like what they could do.
It's just another. Oh man, this is what I fear. Oh, it's a game starring Zelda, and all it is like a mini game fest or some sort of like. Remember when they did the Twilight Princess Picross? It's like something like that,
Or like
except
maybe
it's
like a
starring
graphic,
Zelda.
maybe
Ma-
like a playable novel.
We
A
can
visual
we
novel?
can argue there technically was a Zelda, a game spinoff starring Zelda. It's called Tetris Trackers.
Yeah.
And Tetris Zelda. So. And it was called Navi's Trackers in other territories. But I'm just saying, technically, she was the star of that game.
Hey,
But it was a mini game thing. And
let me throw out a really crazy idea. I do not think this is happening. I do not think it's happening at all. But don't you think it'd be weird that if we did get a Zelda spinoff this year, that probably basically mean we're not getting Wind Waker or Twilight Princess this year.
Ever.
But what if the rumor is about playable Zelda in Wind Waker and Twilight Princess? They add extra campaigns to those games.
Interesting.
Man,
We get to play as Tetra. There's a small like 3 to 4 hour campaign where you get to play as Tetra as a pirate in Wind Waker, and there's a small 3 to 4 hour campaign where you get to play as Zelda, who's very underdeveloped in Twilight Princess, I might add. So I don't think this is happening at all, but I think it's a really fun idea, and it's the way we can get both.
and then
Hell yeah.
Link narrates.
Right. Wait.
That was the question.
Yeah.
Taker 610 did $2 here, and he says Zelda was fun to play in Age of Calamity. Yes,
Also correct.
That
Zelda
is true.
was very fun to play.
Yep.
Kind of proven. I think that also helped drive the narrative of people wanting Zelda playable because she was really fun in that game.
How'd you prefer to play with her? Like with the Sheikah Slate or with her goddess powers?
I
like
liked
the
the
goddess
goddess
powers.
powers.
Yeah, she was.
The Slate was fine, but the Goddess powers were better.
Yeah. Yeah, the Slate felt gimmicky. Goddess powers felt badass.
I want to throw this out there just real quick. Like it just came to my head. Gameplay style for a Zelda game, it's a JRPG. Like Persona style turn-based RPG. I can see it so clearly in my head of like a new version of Zelda with the Persona-esque
Oh boy.
battle UI.
Oh, we are going down this road now.
I'm
This
just
is- you've
it
opened up this
came
ran
to
hole.
me so clearly. And I was like, I have to throw it out there.
I'm going to the next super chat.
Yep.
We're not going to keep going on that rabbit hole right now. That's a
Yes.
whole podcast. And
Just let me share the
was.
screen, and I will not say more than 16 words.
16 words. I'm going to
Okay.
count.
Remember this? This is art for a game that Monolith Soft is working on. It looks very Zelda-like.
You can also argue it looks Fire Emblem like. That's all.
I don't know how many words I got to.
I don't know either.
I'm just saying.
We didn't count.
I know a lot of
was-
people thought it was Zelda like, but over time, I'm like, it's actually kind of like a lot of other games. But moving
There
on.
was another one that literally had Triforces in the architecture. But
Sure.
yeah.
We got $10 here from Free Metroid Head. It said, what if in a Zelda game you play as Sheik in direct combat behind the scene as Zelda to order troops and manage Hyrule Castle? Also, maybe it could be a prequel to the next main game. The interesting thing about Sheik is like directly tied to Ocarina of Time. To bring the Sheik persona back, I can't say it's not like possible, but Sheik was a specific persona Zelda was using to hide. So for me, I don't know about bringing Sheik back to be like this prequel to the next game. I think bringing it back as a pseudo prequel to an Ocarina of Time remake.
Or as like a Bowser's Fury or Future
Oh, yeah.
Connected to Ocarina of Time remake.
Yeah.
So
Like
we could see what
actually
happened.
doing what she did in those 7 years.
Yeah.
And then ending with all the little helpful hints. Like, how did she get into there? How did she give the hints? And then it culminates, with the revealing herself, and then leads into the rest of Ocarina of Time. That'd be really cool. That's the way I would take it. I don't know. Maybe you guys think different.
I think I don't know. I feel like Sheik is cool, but gets overhyped because of Ocarina of Time.
Well,
If
I
she-
mean, she's literally That's the game she's in. So
I know, and like it was never used again outside of Smash. So I feel like it's okay to let that go
Damn.
and not bring it back.
your
Well,
$10 was useless, Free Metroid Hat. That's what he's saying.
I mean, the Sheikah do have more of a ninja feel. You know,
I like the idea of it. I was thinking the same thing, honestly, and I saw this chat come in earlier when we were talking about a Zelda game, and I was thinking it would make sense for the combat to be Sheik.
Mhm.
That's like the alter ego. It could be presented that way.
It
So
doesn't have
makes
to
sense
be
to me.
Zelda. It could be Impa.
Good.
So obviously a lot of Zelda chatter today. So a lot of Zelda related super chats. Another one from Joy CJ. Cyber Zelda. I want to see it. Thoughts. And all I know is the moment I read this, it did not read, I think, the way that you intended. I'm a kid from the 90s. Cyber doesn't mean to me what it means today.
Oh, I was thinking like steampunk or something.
Steve's over there laughing. He gets it. I saw this super chat. I'm like, wait a second. I'm not so sure that we really want to see this. But for those of you not taking it that way, what are your thoughts?
I saw this and immediately thought of Andres' theories from last year where he was convinced we were going to the moon in Tears of the Kingdom. So great way to, now we can go to the moon.
By the way, I wasn't actually convinced. I just thought it was a fun idea.
I mean, I don't know. Those theories are pretty convincing.
I tried my best. I mean, you know, you never is. There was some
Could have been.
Stuff. Yeah. But what if this time futuristic Zelda Link goes to space?
I mean, where else is there to go? We already got Sky Islands. I mean, that's just the next logical vertical step.
Let's go.
And as Joycey did clarify, she meant cyberpunk, which is what I knew she meant. But that's not what that term used to mean in the 90s when you would say the word just cyber on its own on the internet.
I think a cyberpunk Zelda would be pretty cool. I would still want there to be old. Like, I think a lot of Zelda has old in it, but maybe, I mean, it goes back to the Zelda concept of building in my head. Like, I like the idea of having like futuristic cities, but then outside it's like a very wild, ancient world. So as long as you have a little bit of both, I'm for it.
Yeah. On a more serious note, there's been a lot of fan artwork of like, cyberpunk Zelda that I've just really enjoyed. And we already had a motorcycle canon in Zelda now. I mean, we're not that far away from just deciding, you know what, let's just go there.
And the Guardian swords, they're basically lightsabers.
We've been kind of skirting around it for a while to the point where it's just time to go all in. I mean, you could even go like Skyward Sword. It seems like the ancient world was very much that. What about a game that takes place in that ancient world? So there's a lot that I think they've been. I'll just say this. I think a Zelda game will exist someday that does it, that just goes all in on it, because they've been dancing around it for a long time. And I think they're going to continue that dance for a bit, but eventually they're going to say, you know what, that's going to be a new, unique direction we want to try. Just go all in.
This is actually giving me Xenoblade vibes, because in the world of Xenoblade, there was a very modern, futuristic, advanced world. It crashes. There's like basically an apocalypse. I don't want to spoil too much of the story for those that don't know it, but eventually this leads to like, that's like the ancient past, like a very modern world was the ancient past. And so seeing like a Zelda game like that could be interesting.
Which Xenoblade game was that?
All.
Yeah, I see it now. That I got it.
Mr. Seymour Duck just wanted to say quack.
Hell yeah.
Based.
The Mighty Ducks are back, baby. This one just seems to get brought up every week at this point. Justin Basil wanting to go, or sorry, Basil is the correct way to say his last name. Animal Well, great game. Dude, my community is pushing Animal Well hard. Every live stream there's a super chat about Animal Well.
It's interesting because I thought at first it was just like, so a company just like pushing it from a marketing perspective, because I saw a lot of channels cover it, but then I was like, oh, a lot of people just like really like this.
Yeah,
it's interesting.
I haven't played it yet, but I'm sure it's great. Has anyone else here played it?
Hey, the marketing seems to be working, because I might play it soon too.
I have it downloaded on the PlayStation because it's free on PlayStation Plus.
I mean, hey, they got me to look at it. So.
Yeah, interesting.
I might have to go download it then.
I did see a lot of stuff, a lot of coverage on it leading up to it over the last probably year or two. and I've had it pegged, and then I saw it was going to be free. I was like, oh, okay, cool, that's nice. So it's definitely a game that's been on my radar that I think, based on the reviews, I mean, people are loving this game, so it's probably going to be a game we all enjoy.
Looks freaking
Hey,
awesome.
AAA developers, maybe pay attention to, you make
It's a
good small games,
Metroidvania.
people buy it. Just
Yep.
saying. You don't have to go for all the money. You make a lot of money going for just more unique ideas. Let's see. We have a $20 super chat coming in. The biggest one of the night by Free Metroid has saying, I did not like the Guardians or the bosses in Breath of the Wild. And the fact Breath of the Wild has almost no dungeons because the Divine Beasts are like puzzles rather than dungeons. I find that interesting because that's what we're doing in the dungeons is solving puzzles. But that's fine. I understand. This is a very common complaint, by the way. Breath of the Wild is not in my top 5 Zelda games and does not feel like Zelda. Is there anyone who, I don't think any of us think that Breath of the Wild is whatever, but is anyone who understands that Breath of the Wild doesn't feel like Zelda?
Who gets to decide what feels like Zelda aside from the people who make the game? Like, realistically, who are we to say that it doesn't feel like Zelda? We're not the ones making the game. You can dislike the game all you want. I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. But I don't think we get to sit here and say, well, this doesn't feel like Zelda because it doesn't do all these things. You didn't make the game. I don't think you get that level of determination.
I mean, you can concede that it's different from a lot of Zeldas, which is fair. But I would argue that the direction that the team took was in an effort to make it the most Zelda game yet.
Yeah.
Because they deemed that the spirit of Zelda is about adventure. And I would argue that Breath of the Wild revolutionized how adventure games forevermore. And I actually really resonate with that. That's why I love Breath of the Wild so much, because it focuses on adventure above all else. And so to me, that's what Zelda is.
I think
in part. There's other factors.
So obviously I love all the Zelda games except Phantom Hourglass. But I look at this thing about how I understand why Breath of the Wild doesn't feel like Zelda to a lot of people. So I played every single Zelda game, and my very first game I ever did was Link's Awakening. But then after Link's Awakening, I went back and played the original Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2. Both of those games feel very much like Breath of the Wild. Like, it's very comparable. Even the dungeons, they're stupidly simple. They're not that complicated. Very easy to figure everything out. And you have a boss fight at the end that also isn't really that complicated and pretty easy to figure out. Zelda 2, a bit more difficult on traversing and some of the combat because it requires a lot more skill and a lot more management of magic and other things that didn't exist in the first Zelda game. But in the end, both of them are completely open world experiences. Go anywhere, do anything you want, anytime you want. Very little story. Breath of the Wild. So it's fascinating when I see this opinion because I think it comes from people that wasn't what they grew up with. They grew up from Ocarina of Time and onwards, where everything is very linear. Everything is very dungeon focused. Everything is built around the dungeons. It's all about going from dungeon to dungeon to dungeon. Hyrule Field is just an empty field. It's irrelevant. It's cool, but it just exists to go between the dungeons. And I feel like for a lot of people, Zelda feels like a dungeon crawler game. And it's been that way really for a long time. Skyward Sword was an exasperated dungeon crawler. They took the overworld and made the overworld a dungeon. You are crawling through it like you do a dungeon. So for me, I think that I understand that perspective, but I think Breath of the Wild was returning to the roots of what the series was. So I think Zelda's always sort of been a couple of different things, and there hasn't really been the one true game that brings that all together. And I think that may be what disappoints a lot of people about Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom is that it's not a dungeon crawling experience. It doesn't focus heavily on them. They're kind of short. Even Tears of the Kingdom ones are still kind of short. And they don't feel as like, I love Tears of the Kingdom's dungeons. I wouldn't rank them above most of the rest of the Zelda series dungeons. Because I think they've all been done better, but they've also been done in this linear way that these games aren't presented in. So that I understand the perspective is what I'm saying. I think it's an incorrect perspective, but that's because it's only considering a certain type of Zelda game when we've had games like this in the past.
So I want to say something too
Yeah.
on that. I agree with this, and I've always actually kind of thought the same thing because I've heard the debate and I've heard people say the same thing about Breath of the Wild. And you guys, are you guys aware that Nintendo created a NES version of Breath of the Wild? Have you
Yeah.
guys seen? You guys have seen
Yeah,
this?
they
Yeah,
had
yeah.
that.
Do you
tech
guys
demo.
remember reading about why they did that though? It's for exactly what you just explained, Nate. And that's the thing is my first Zelda that I grew up with was the original Zelda on Nintendo. That was the first game I ever bought for regular Nintendo. And it is really truly an open world experience, and so is Zelda 2. So it's really just going back to the roots. Like you have to find the dungeons. Some dungeons are like hidden away in secrets. You got to burn a bush to find the dungeon, or you got to play the flute in front of the lake to open up a dungeon. Or I think it was the fifth dungeon. You have to go up 5 screens in a row.
Yeah.
Or navigating the forest, just trying to get through there to get to the graveyard in the first Zelda. So much of that is in Breath of the Wild, and I think that's again why people say it doesn't feel like Zelda, because it's not more linear like most of the Zelda games that we've had in between those. So really, it is just getting back to its roots. That's actually why I really do enjoy these games.
Yeah, but I also I'll say this for people that they kind of have this term now where like a traditional Zelda fan. It seems to be what people call that they don't like Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom. I think one thing that I will say is Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are such a stark return to the origins of the series. I feel for you that it seems that you're never going to get the Zeldas you loved before again. You'll get remakes and remasters of old ones, but Anuma's words, they're not going back. And I can see how that might upset you. I'm not saying that they don't find a way to do it. We talked about hypothetically a Zelda-led top-down or something like that can go more traditional, or that maybe they do return to it someday. But I do understand that it had been a dungeon crawling focused series for so long that this is a hard turn away from it. We're now about to get the last one that they had was what? A Link Between Worlds? 2013, the last traditional dungeon crawling Zelda game.
Mm-hmm.
And that was already stepping away from it because you could do them out of order.
Yeah, so we're 11 years removed from the last time you got something that felt traditional. And the words of Aonuma, hey, we're not going backwards. You got to understand why. Look at the sales. So I can understand why it's kind of upsetting on the whole. Like, not that these games exist, but that you get this gut feeling you're not going to get another game like that again after getting them for so long.
I do want to speak on something. Steve, you were kind of mentioning the original Zelda and how you can kind of like it's the dungeons are so extremely well hidden. And while you were relating them to Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, and I know where you're coming from with that, like that was definitely part of the intent there. I kind of want to see them going more in that direction. Like, I want to play the next Zelda game and be exploring a forest just because it looks cool, and then just happen upon this random dungeon. Like it's not like, oh, you have to go in this direction to save the wood spirit. Like, you just randomly find it there. You're like, holy crap, what is this? And then you unearth it, and before you know, if you find yourself in this ancient forest temple that's possessed by ghosts, and then you discover that on the fly. Like, I want to just randomly find things like that. And I'll say this: while I agree, it's factual. It's in interviews, right? They're not going to go back to the linear Zeldas as they are. But I also don't think that doesn't mean that there won't be elements from those Zeldas they'll find better ways to incorporate. Because as you noted earlier, Nate, while Tears of the Kingdom dungeons you wouldn't say are better than, like, say, Skyward Sword dungeons, it did seem like you were sort of suggesting they're at least an improvement over Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, they're starting. It feels like they're like, all right, we got to bring some of this back in. And I feel like we're going to see even starker with that with the next game. I think what they're trying to do is find a way to balance an open sort of freedom of gameplay while creating a compelling dungeon. And they're having, I would say some growing pains trying to figure out how to make that work, since dungeons have always been super linear, one way to do everything. And now they're like, well, we got to be more open gameplay wise to this. So how do we do that and balance still trying to create a challenging, fun dungeon? And for a lot of people, the crazy part is some of the people's most fun they had with the dungeons and Tears of the Kingdom weren't the dungeons. It was the lead up into the dungeons that actually were fairly linear. Like you had to do a very specific thing. You could do it in multiple different ways, but it was still like one path you're going to end up getting into a dungeon. And people loved that. And it was tied into story. They did a good job tying it in that way as well. And so this feels like they brought some of that back a little bit heading in. And that might even lead into why Free Metro had also super chatted in that Tears of the Kingdom ended up being in his top 3 Zelda games. Because it seems to have learned a little bit. Like one thing we've learned, I think, with Tears of the Kingdom, especially, the Zelda team's actually paying attention to what the fans are saying. 30 million, they could have just ignored any complaints. So they said, no, we hear you.
They made a better ending, better unique boss fights.
They listened in a lot of ways.
Flavor.
Yep.
Yeah.
Still didn't give us a way to reforge our weapons and repair them. I wish they would have did that.
Yeah, some people disagree with Tears of the Kingdom being a better story, but I think that's a minority. Like, it's a better story overall.
Yeah. I mean, yeah.
At least with the voice acting. Like, the voice acting's a lot better.
I enjoyed the voice acting in the first game, too. They still aren't doing what I want. I want them to do full voice acting for the whole game. It's kind of weird, like how the voice acting starts and then all of a sudden it just stops.
Yeah.
Expensive. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
We're talking. Okay, I'm sorry. Other games that don't sell 20 million copies are doing it.
He's got a great point. Persona does it in every game.
Like, oh my god, there's games that sell like 3 million that have full voice acting with way more lines than Zelda has.
And yet, look at what's happening to the industry. So, is it actually a good point?
Yes, because Zelda sells significantly more than them. They should use the money they make to make a better product.
Hey, I'm not saying I don't want it.
I don't want it to be Pokemon. Don't just settle because you make a lot of money. You know what I mean? Zelda, it's one of those things. Yeah, look at the rest of the industry. Well, the rest of the industry is trying to be Zelda. Zelda's already there.
Acting, then.
It's already there. I'm saying Zelda's Breath of the Wild sold 30 million. They were profitable at 2 million in sales.
Yeah, I feel you.
The ceiling has raised.
Wait, do we know if it was profitable at 2 million, or is that just your?
That's it was some Nintendo thing they said in a financial meeting.
Okay. Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's some killer profits.
Yeah, because they don't spend a lot. Like if you think about it, it's estimated it was around $100 million to make Breath of the Wild. You could just literally do the math. It's insane how much money they made on that game. And I'm not saying that Nintendo isn't reinvesting their money. They do. Like Tears of the Kingdom had a higher budget and a bigger team, and I'm sure this next Zelda game will have an even higher budget and a bigger team. But it's one of those things that, like with me, with voice acting, you bring it in, you trickle it in. I get experimenting with it. I don't know why you can't go all in when other games that sell significantly less do it and keep releasing new games and are doing it at 3, 4, 5 million in sales that you already know Zelda's going to get. You're not going to release a big 3D Zelda game that's going to sell less than 5 million again. You're not going to see a Skyward Sword Wind Waker situation, I don't think, anymore. And even then, it would probably still end up being profitable because Nintendo is crazy good with their budgets. One of the reasons that the games don't cost as much at Nintendo is because they retain all their talent. They don't have to do 1,000 temporary hires to make a game work. So, yeah, I don't think it's that big a deal to hire voice actors to actually read all the damn lines that are in the game for every character. I want it to be for every character, but even the ones they do voice, how about just every line they voice? One of my biggest complaints with Tears of the Kingdom Breath of the Wild is here's this nice voice acted thing and then into a text box from that same character. It's so like
it's very common in games though. You know, it's not just Zelda. Like a lot of games are like this, where you transition from voice acted cutscene to here now we're at the dialogue.
Yeah, but not in the AAA space anymore. They're now doing full voice acting for everything, and the voice acting is actually one of the cheapest parts of the budget. So I just don't.
We're in the Q&A. We're in the Q&A. Let's not start a fight over this. I want voice acting. I just not sure they're going to put it in every single character.
They're not. So I know they're not going to.
Yeah.
All right. Next one here we have is from Mr. Seymour Duck. Do you think DLSS will be forced on developers to use, or do you think it'll be optional? It's always optional.
I think it's optional, but why would you not
I think
want
you.
to use it?
The only reason you want is if like it's an indie game that you just happen to not need it. You do
Not
native
need
4K 60 and you just don't need it. Like there's just no
Yeah.
point at that point. Yeah, no,
Yeah.
It's one of those things that I think you will be hard pressed to find any AA to AAA game. I think he just accidentally closed his browser that doesn't support it. It's totally what he did. So I think that is probably the way things are going to go. There is why wouldn't you use it, right?
Yeah, especially if you already have a game on Switch One
Yeah,
that can take advantage of it. Now you have a way to either re-release the game as a Switch 2 title by doing some minor work on the game, opportunity to make tons of money again, or they're going to do an upgrade path. We won't know until the time comes.
yeah. I mean, I want to be clear. DLSS isn't something that they need like 100 developers to work on to make it work. So, at games I think will be designed when they're ported to Switch. Like, say they don't use this tech on other platforms. I'll tell you this: if there's any third-party game trying to use ray tracing, that company is going to literally use DLSS to do it. Otherwise, ray tracing just won't be in the game.
Yep.
So, like, it's to me, they're not going to be forced. But it's one of those why wouldn't you situations, you know? It's kind of like when FSR finally fully releases on PS5 and Xbox Series X. It's coming. It's coming to developers. It's starting to hit the dev portal where finally that support's coming in. Yeah, everyone's going to start using it. So, we have our last one in here. Unless there's some I missed, I'll go back and double check while we answer this. Super Metroid did $5 Canadian and said, "I had this idea last week. What do you guys think about a Mario Metroidvania?"
I wouldn't be surprised if a future 2D Mario takes some ideas from that concept, just in terms of like having a more interconnected 2D Mario world. I mean, the overworld's kind of like that sort of, but you know, like actual something pertaining to the actual main part of the gameplay with the levels, that would actually be a neat way to give us a fresh take on 2D Mario.
I would love it. I love Metroidvanias. Huge fan. And given the fact that Konami doesn't make new Castlevanias and we only get Metroids every so often, there's so many Metroidvania games out there. I think it'd be a good genre to jump into. Why not?
Yeah.
Get it? You said jump.
I may be the only one here. I'm gonna say no.
You take that back.
I don't like Metroidvanias. That's why. I tried playing Hollow Knight, didn't like it. I liked Metroid Dread, but not for the Metroidvania part. For
What about
everything
Symphony
else.
of the Night?
Did you like Mario Wonder?
Symphony of the Night.
Yeah, but Mario Wonder wasn't really a Metroidvania.
No, it wasn't. I just wanted to make sure
I like the 2D
yeah.
Mario, but I don't like Metroidvania. So thus combining those two, I might try it.
Would
but
you
it's
like a
not gonna be,
Mario?
like my new favorite?
Would you like a Mario roguelite?
No, I don't like roguelites either.
Okay. Because I see a lot of people like Metroidvania tend to like roguelites, so I was wondering how you felt there.
I won't get super deep into it, but I don't like roguelites. Like, I never finished Hades because I didn't like that I died and had to start over. Like, I like Mario because I die and I'm like, okay, I'll start at this level again, not the beginning of
Or
the
Mario
game.
Wonder, turn on the online, just fly to the checkpoint someone dropped.
Exactly.
That's all right. Hey, everyone's free to have different things. Do you have any thoughts on this one, Eric? Metroidvania, Mario?
It'd be interesting. Sure,
And-
why not? Try it.
Awesome. All right. Well, that is the end of the Q&A as far as I can tell, unless any other questions pop in before we sign out here. Let's go around the room, tell people what we got going on and where they can find us. Want to tease any upcoming content, this is the time to do it. By the way, everyone who's been on the show today, and just like every single week, is linked down below, both in the audio and video version of the show. So be sure to go check them out if you enjoyed their conversations, because they have a lot of stuff. Some people I don't know what to link to, like Cheesy's on 2 different podcasts, so I linked to the smallest one. Nick Madoke has like 5 channels, so I linked to the at Nerdiest Nick, the Nerdiest Podcast, because they're getting close to 1,000 subscribers. So I'm like, all right, it's a little milestone coming up. So let's start with Thunder Steve 85 Gaming. What do you got going on? Where can they find you?
So you guys can find me at ThunderSteve85 Gaming on YouTube. And what I am working on, well, reviewing UDN Chronicles 100 Heroes. And I'm working on a retro video game series. The video is almost done. I should have it up in a few days. I'm pretty excited. The whole premise, though, is going to be basically returning to old games and seeing if they can stand the test of time, meaning, are they still good today? They were really good 20 or 30 years ago, but can you pick it up and play it today and is actually good? So I'm looking forward to that. And yeah, you guys should check that out.
All right. Andres, restart.
I don't know.
He's like allergic to advertising himself.
I'm looking to be number one under the sun. That's all I got to say. See you at the
All
next
right.
World Martial Arts Tournament. Or
Cheesy.
the next Nintendo video you watch.
I guess we'll move on. Cheesy.
You can find me at CheezyC64, CheezyC64 on TikTok, on Twitter, on Instagram. I make Nintendo news and Nintendo essay videos. I also co-host Communication Error Podcast with John Ebo, and I co-host on Nintendo Powercast with N64 Josh, John Ebo, and Crawler.
Awesome.
Awesome. And then we got Nick with no K.
That's me. You can find me. The best place to go is Twitter at NerdiestNick. I have like a link tree there and everything that expunges on where all my stuff is. But I'm also on YouTube at Nick with no K, Nerdiest Podcast, pretty much everywhere. Content wise, just I put out a video today on like the future of my YouTube channel and like where we're going with that, because I'm trying to get back into long form content. So that's out. And I just recorded 3 shorts today on 3 different Nintendo games that I think would make really good anime. So those will be out sometime in the near future. And there's content coming. That's what I'll say.
Awesome. Eric.
I'm here.
And
Most
is hot.
Wednesdays, 8 p.m. And he's hot. 69% can't be wrong. Then obviously you guys have me, the host of the show, Nintendo Prime. How you guys doing? Look, I'm just gonna say this. We have a clips channel. What is it? Nintenbyte Podcast clips. I was a little bit behind on doing clips last week, so actually it looks like we're gonna literally have a clip every single day from last week's and this week's show, heading all the way into the next show and beyond. So I'm pretty excited about that. The Clips channel is a way that you can get all of our individual segments of the channel on their own instead of watching the entire podcast for it. I know people always like, oh, what about timestamps? Go to the Clips channel. You need timestamps then. You watch the video and the topic you're actually interested in over there. Probably should put a link in. I don't know if I even have a link. Okay, Eric dropped a link. Thank you so much. And our audio version is up. It's working. It's everywhere. It's awesome. It's growing, which is really crazy to actually see it grow, considering that I'm not really advertising much. So we're on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, pretty much everywhere. There's a few places we're not. Amazon Music, we're there as well. So we're growing. The podcast is growing. This is all natural. I love it. So if you guys want to go watch the audio version instead in the future, because you're not going to catch this one live and you don't want to watch it later, you want to just listen, say, hey, we're going to work out, I'm going to do whatever. You want to listen to a podcast, check it out. Thank you to all of our guests who were here tonight, including Sabrina. Thank you so much, Saffron City TV. Reminder, she was here as well. You guys are awesome. And that's going to do it. That's the end of the show, guys. Catch you next week.
Adieu.